we weren't out there, trying to discover the next big thing. We were just putting out, whether it be, I saw Smash exactly the same as I saw Coldplay. It's kind of, would you like to do a single? That's it. There's no great thought to it.
Welcome. We are Neil,
Luke and Dave.
340-somethings reminiscing on the runners and riders of 90s guitar music.
We look at the bands who soundtracked our youth on both sides of the pond and interview some of our heroes from the bands that defined a generation.
You'll hear about the good, the bad and the ugly of 90s guitar music.
This podcast is Stupid and Contagious. Monumental one this week, episode 90. It's a 90s podcast, isn't it?
We're going to have a metaphysical crisis. I'm worried about what happens when we get beyond episode 99.
Yeah.
Well, that's it,
like
isn't
the
it?
Millennium
Y2K bug. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've already said that's it, isn't it? And we're out of here. See you later.
Mic drop.
99 and done.
So this week we're talking to Simon Williams, Fierce Panda. It's a good one.
I loved it. Yeah.
How did you get him to come on? Did you know him already?
Me?
Yes, to Luke, yeah.
No, not at all. No, I mean, I read his book last year and I wanted to get him on after reading it because it was just blew me away. But no, it's all down to Neil, man. Neil did it.
Do you think, like every other fucking thing that happens on this podcast? No, Luke does all the work for the interviews and stuff, doesn't he? Dave, what do you do?
Oh, I do a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Well, not to do the podcast, but
Right, in general.
busy person.
Yeah.
Build picnic tables, look up the wrong fucking album, all kinds. Yeah.
So just before we started recording, Dave tore his jerkin off and said it's too hot. So you might not see that again for a while.
Luke said I'm jerking off.
You
It's a good
literally
joke,
were.
wasn't it? Yeah.
You had to be there, though.
And Luke did an impromptu version of Boom Shake the Room, which unfortunately we didn't get recorded, but
It's word perfect. I'm pretty sure.
it's pretty good. So before we get onto the Simon Williams interview, Dave, come on, give us some Berwick news.
There's no Berwick news. Oh, someone had some newts in their pond the other day.
Yes,
Oh.
that's what I like it. Go on.
Like a lot of newts.
Funny creatures, aren't they, newts?
I suppose so, yeah.
Go on. Tell us more about the newt scenario. She had a lot of newts.
Well, she posted about it on the village group.
Right.
Then she was saying she might get some goldfish, and then someone said, "Oh no, you better not get goldfish because they'll eat the newts."
Oh, is that true?
It might be, but I just don't
It
like
seems
that.
unlikely, doesn't it?
Stop,
doesn't like it.
it's horrible giving advice like that. Isn't it?
It's horrible.
Just keep it
That's
yourself.
what those kind of fucking village groups are for, man. People
It's very
interfering.
true.
That's exactly what they're for.
They're amazing, some of those groups.
Is that newt discovery enough to stop them building?
Don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're grey crested or not.
Right. Does that make all the difference?
I think so.
Yeah, sure. Just go and fucking draw it on or whatever, man. Just get a marker pen and draw it on whatever it needs.
A great crest. Oh, I did. I registered a domain name yesterday.
Oh, what was it?
Go on.
I'mANob.com.
No, you'd already registered that.
Oh, no.
Couldn't do it.
Oh.
Well, I'm gonna create like a new multi-billion-dollar software company.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I've been inspired by our app, that I did, and I thought,
Yeah.
what
That's
if?
done really well, hasn't it?
Yeah, but I thought, what if someone as unskilled as you
Me?
create their own app? Yeah,
As me?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to create this site and app that you can anyone can do their own app.
Hang on. Didn't I suggest this idea to you?
No,
That hasn't been done before? Is it not like a Squarespace for app creation?
There isn't, but this is. I'm sure I had this conversation with you when we were making our app. I said it was a good idea.
well, maybe you didn't. It's landed now. And
What's the
that's
name of the
converted to
domain
action.
then?
Yeah, so I've registered orgiggly.com.
You dirty fucker. What does that even mean?
So org, that's what you're an org, right? And you create
You're a fucking orc.
an org on this. And then the
What are you
giggly
talking
bit
about?
was just because I thought it sounded funny.
I've no idea what any of those words just meant.
People will easily find you.
It's a new word. Thing is, if you want to register a domain, you've got to create a new word because all the words are already registered.
Yeah, one that
Right,
someone
yeah.
might be able to find. No one's going to
Well,
be
they're
looking
all
for all
gone.
giggly, are they?
They're all gone.
But you've already remembered the word. That's good.
Yeah, you're right. Actually.
True.
Yeah.
And you've got to
You're
naturally know how to spell it. So how do you think you'd spell it?
ORGGIGGLY.
Bugger.
LIE.
No.
Oh.
There's only one G at the ORGIGGLY. Luke would have spelled it.
Considering I
like that.
can't do words, I got pretty close. So yeah, be
Yeah.
good.
I would have spelled it the same as Neil on the way you said it. You're gonna have to pronounce it giggly, not org giggly.
Yeah, I thought it was 2 words.
Is
Org
org
giggly.
giggly? Is that our new sponsor?
Well, yeah, if he wants
It's
to
gonna
put money
be.
in.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, if he wants to
So,
put the money in,
put
then
your money where your
more than
mouth is. Yeah.
well, that's
good on
quite
you, man.
exciting.
Yeah.
Remember us when we're no longer needed. I mean, I don't know what we
remember all
do
the
without you, to
insults.
be honest.
I'm just sipping champagne in your bath of ass's milk. In your brand new gold-plated masturbatorium. Remember the little guys.
Yeah, just remember us.
The last people I want to think about in there.
You say that.
Luke, what have you been up to?
Oh man, absolutely fuck all. It hasn't been long since we're recording early, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Have you not had any more driving lessons?
Oh, I did have a drive. I'd actually got behind the wheel for the first time since I was 17. Oh man, tell you what, automatic cars, piece of piss. It was it was so much easier not having to worry about that. No, I'm not. I was still rubbish, but just the fact of not having to do that. I literally just went round in a circle for an hour, basically, round and round and round.
So that's the first time you've ever made a car go, isn't it?
I've done driving. I've done. I was all. No, I was terrible before. I was, but yeah, the automatic makes all the difference. So I'm slightly more confident than I was a week ago because it just took away that element of it. Yeah, and it was fun. It was good. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's good.
Yeah.
Glad you're getting on with it.
I've got a few more lessons this weekend, so I'll let you know. But yeah, I'm doing that. Listen to lots of Fugazi.
Are there lessons in Japanese?
Yeah, so I'm doing. Did I talk about this? It's a semi-English course, which means that the driving. But you have to have a semi the whole time. Yeah.
What if you go past?
Well, that's the
car.
That's the instructor's job. Is just to keep you at half mast. That's the skill.
Such a ridiculous conversation.
So the practical parts, like in the car, are all in Japanese. Right. But the lectures and the writing part is all in English because it's really complicated kanji and shit.
Because you're not that good at Japanese.
Well, not for reading and writing, no.
But then you must be pretty good if you can understand his direction.
I mean, I'm okay for spoken stuff, but reading complicated questions where they're trying to fucking trick you and shit. I'm
the opposite. I've been doing Duolingo, and I can read and write Spanish all right now. But as soon as someone starts talking to me, I haven't got a clue what they're talking about.
See.
So if I asked you to write about your day yesterday, you could just do that, no problem.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I could do some basics. Yeah. You don't believe me, I know, but who gives a fuck?
I don't believe you at all.
Nor do I.
No, not for a fucking minute.
Stuff. Just about.
I reckon you can write hola.
Yeah, and sombrero.
That Duolingo
probably can't do. I couldn't spell that.
That bird thing or whatever it is says I'm doing quite well. So the owl guy.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right. Keeps popping up saying I'm doing well. So
what's owl in Spanish then?
Owl.
Ole. Is it?
Yeah.
Doesn't know, does he?
Well, it's one of the first words Duolingo teaches you.
Is it?
I don't know what.
Do you know owl in Swedish?
Ugla.
Oh yeah, that's right. I knew that. Yeah.
All right. Fucking hell. So I don't know French. In Spanish. What do you want?
It's fukuro in Japanese.
What are you talking about? Fugazi? You're just talking about
Yeah,
Fugazi.
Fugazi. Listening to a lot of Fugazi. Listen to the latest Enum Claw album. They were a great kind of new band that sound like they're in the 90s. I really tried to get them to come on for the summer specials last year, but I couldn't get hold of them. Maybe try again this summer.
Yeah.
Their latest
Maybe
album.
do
I think
that
it came out
again.
last year, but it's really good. It's really cool. Sounds like
We're not around for the summer, are we?
90s,
99, they were done, isn't it?
yeah. Well,
So,
if we do any
yeah.
summer specials, I'd try again maybe, because I'd like to have a chat to him, because I just like them a lot, basically. Neil, what have you been up to?
Like you, not a lot. It hasn't been long, has it? Because, like you say, we're recording early. Just boring. We're not boring. Just work. Just been doing. I did like a corporate shoot this week. It's boring, isn't it?
Oh,
Ooh.
what does that entail?
Doesn't sound boring to me.
Just shooting a couple of people talking into a camera.
Cool.
I'm going to Bordeaux this next week for work.
That's right.
That's why we're recording this early. Ooh la la.
What are you filming
Yeah.
over there?
Just wedding chateaus, wedding venues and stuff. Doing that. Oh, we haven't spoken about the big news of the week. Pope.
The Pope.
Fucking hell.
Pope.
I liked the Pope. The
I
Pope
thought you'd be wearing
smoked
your
dope.
t-shirt. Yeah, I thought you'd be wearing your t-shirt.
Yeah, should have done, out of respect.
Good
Yeah.
t-shirt like that.
Do you reckon that's what killed him?
Of course it is.
Smoked too
He's
much
probably
dope.
Like the Pope.
He's probably
Don't
the best Pope of our lives, that Pope. He actually had some morals,
Yeah.
standing
Yeah,
up for
yeah.
Gaza and
Well,
whatnot.
Partly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apart from sort of brushing over the children getting.
No, but he didn't
Used
brush
it.
over it.
And
He actually
homophobia,
addressed it.
apart from that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he is that. Yeah.
He is that.
Oh no, he actually. No, I thought he did. He did stick up
No.
for that.
No, he had a chance to and he didn't, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But you were talking about Conclave last week. I think, the viewers of Conclave jumped like whatever, however many 100% after the Pope died, because everyone was like, what's going to happen now, right? We need to find out how it works.
We'd
And
already seen it.
I'm imagining exactly that movie. I'm imagining it's happening right now.
I might go for it.
That's all I know.
I
For
might
the
go.
Pope.
Yeah, how do you do it? Just send a letter.
I think you have to be a
Yeah, just turn
cardinal.
up. No, just turn up, man.
That'd be all right, wouldn't
You just have to smoke dope.
it?
If whoever smokes dope the best wins.
That's how they should do it.
That's how it's decided.
Should we just get into this week's episode then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Simon Williams, Fierce Panda. Shall we do it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
If you are watching this, then please do give it a thumbs up, get involved in the comments, and subscribe to our channel. And if you're listening, then please do rate and review and share it with your friends. Whatever you're watching, share it with your friends as well, so they can find the podcast. We've got an app, as Dave's already mentioned. He's taken it global, but for the original one that he did, you can get on iPhone, Stupid and Contagious app, seamlessly go between the podcast and the mixtape. Give it a go. Dave says it's been highly successful. So if you want to sponsor the podcast, then send us an email at stupidandcontagionspodcast@gmail.com. If you're a cheese label seller or anyone with anything, drop us an email. No, if you've got a dedication to someone's birthday, all that sort of stuff, we can give them a shout out on the podcast, take the piss, do all that stuff. I'm not sure I'm selling it very well.
No, that's perfect. That's it.
You can sponsor one. You can just sponsor one, so there's not we're not tying you in for loads of cash. So just drop us an email. We'd love to have you on board. This week, with Simon Williams, Fierce Panda. Sure, most of our listeners will be aware of Fierce Panda. Anyone who's really into indie music will know the label well. But Luke, tell us a bit about Simon Williams and Fierce Panda.
Will do indeed. So most of the information comes from his amazing book, Pandemonium: How Not to Run a Record Company. Well, as soon as I read it last year, I messaged Neil and said, I just love to speak to him because the book was so good. And before I talk about it, I guess we should offer a quick trigger warning, because I'm going to be mentioning suicide and suicidal ideation a bit later on in the interview. and I'll probably be talking about it in a moment as well. So, quick trigger warning: if that's something that might be upsetting, then feel free to fast forward over this part. But I'm only going to mention it briefly. So the information comes from the book. So Simon Williams, born 26th of September 1965, so he's 59 years old as we speak, in Clacton in London, and it's kind of. Again, the book goes into it a lot, but basically his dad committed suicide when he was 5 years old. He talks about it in the interview, which had a big impact on him. And he basically grew up as a indie kid in the 1980s. So he talks about a load of kind of 80s indie bands in the interview. So won't go too deep into that. But he ended up making a fanzine while he was doing various jobs, like working at Sainsbury's and working in factories and living in bedsits and stuff like that. And the fanzine was called Jump Away something. Each one had a different ending. So Jump Away, Carlos Fandango. Jump Away, Nelson Pandela. Don't know about that. Jump Away, Madame Whiplash, etc. And he just kind of went around interviewing people. Interviewed an up-and-coming Harry Enfield. Talks about interviewing the Darling Buds, whose names come up yet again.
Trying to get them on.
Mega City 4, I think he interviewed quite early on as well. And so his hard work paid off, and it ended up getting him a job at the NME. And again, listen to the interview to find out the full story of that. So he ended up working at the NME for 11 years, which is when I first came across his name, because I was an NME obsessive, basically. So him and Steve Lamacq basically created the On section, which a lot of our listeners, I'm sure, loved very much. It was just like the section of NME that introduced the new bands. And he was a live editor. So again, him and Steve Lamacq were going out every night, watching 2, 3, 4 bands and getting all the new up and coming bands, basically. So he talks about his time in the NME quite a lot in the book. So he interviewed everyone, basically: Prodigy, Rage Against the Machine, Stone Roses, Green Day. Went on tour to Japan with Neds Atomic Dustbin, all kinds of good stuff like that. Lived in the same house as Marianne Hobbs as a lodger. She was a lodger in another room as well. I think the house owner was some kind of NME photographer. But he talks about, spiral carpets and rides and stuff, sleeping over on the floor and stuff like that. Went on in a tour van with Oasis just before they got big. Again, he mentions it in the interview. Him and Steve.
Stuff,
that's amazing, right? Him and Steve Lamacq were very early champions of the Grebo bands. And they had this big kind of campaign to get all of their favourite Grebo bands on the front cover of NME, which I think they managed to do it. So, Pop Believe Yourself and Mickey C4 and Senseless Things he includes and stuff like that. And whilst he was doing that, he started Fierce Panda record label in 1994. At first, there were 2 other NME writers with him, Paul Moody and John Harris, at the start, but they bailed pretty early and he took over. And again, he explains it, but basically they wanted to document the new wave of the new wave movement. And their plan was just to put out one double 7-inch that included Neil's pointing to his T-shirt, Smash, and These Animal Men. So that was the plan. And they're still going, 31 years later. But let me just read you the first 5 releases from Fierce Panda.
Go on.
So these are all double 7-inches. First one, Shagging in the Streets, featuring Smash, These Animal Men, Done Lying Down, people might remember.
Yeah.
Second release, called Crazed and Confused, featuring Gorky Psychotic Monkey, Credit to the Nation, Ash, and Supergrass. On one double 7-inch, right? Third release, Return to Splendor, Blue Tones, Thurman, who get mentioned now and again on the podcast, and the New Biles, who me and Neil were quite big fans of, right?
Yeah.
You had a T-shirt.
I did.
Yeah, they were great.
But hang on, how can you fit 4 songs on a 7-inch?
It's a double 7-inch. There's 2 of them.
Oh, of course.
So there were 6 bands, basically. Fourth release, called Built to Blast, featuring Green Day and China Drum. A band I quite like called Joey Fat, just re-released some stuff on Wrong Speed recently, actually. And 5th release, called From Greer to Eternity, featuring Lush. That's just like the first 5 things they put out. That's incredible, right? Then I'll give you a list of some other people that went through the the ranks of Fierce Panda. So, well, in no particular order: Placebo, Super Furry Animals, Kaniki, Three Colors Red, Biss, Bennett, Magoo, Tiger, Symposium, Embrace, Ultrasound, Idlewild, Llama Farmers, Death Cab for Cutie. Listen to this: Bright Eyes, Interpol, and you will know us by the trailer Dead, all on the same double 7-inch, man. It's this one, the Clooney Tunes one. Dave, your favourite, Keen, Razorlight. Dave, your mates, the Rakes, Art Brew, Million Dead, 6x7, Maccabees, Jim's Super Stereo World. That's Jim Bob's solo thing after Carter. Baby Bird, the music, amazing. Take the Long Road and Walk.
The music, I love the music.
Yeah, I like them as
Funeral
well.
for a Friend. And they released the Wibbling Rivalry 7-inch, which was.
Did they?
Do you remember that? So basically, it was Liam and Noel arguing with each other as they were being interviewed. So that was the whole. That was the 7-inch. Yeah, it was just the interview tape. Basically, there was no music on it, and they released that called Wibbling Rivalry. But what a fucking list, right? That's insane.
It's pretty good.
It's insane.
Isn't it? So for listeners, Dave now has a dog behind him. It's called Otto.
In the
we
background.
Talk about him on the podcast sometimes. There he is. Look
at him. Oh, he is.
They say a dog looks like their owner, don't they?
Cute one. He is.
Dogs do look like their owners.
Does look a bit. Yeah.
Look a bit like what?
Their owners, don't they? Dogs.
Shall I continue?
No.
So, as well as Fierce Panda, and I mentioned it in the interview, so just to avoid confusion when it comes up, there were a couple of very short-lived side labels. So one was called Livid Meerkat. You get it? Fierce Panda.
Yes,
Meerkat.
we get it. Yeah, we get it.
It only lasted for 5 singles and 1 album, but the idea was to put out kind of more post-rocky stuff. So my favourites, Rothko, Billy Mudhoney, released on Livid Meerkat. And there was also Rabid Badger, which was supposed to be for dance music stuff. They lasted for 10 singles and 2 albums, but again, personal favourites: Campo Velocet, Regular Fries, Clint Boone Experience, Clint Boone from the Inspirals.
Did Campo Velocet release Chaise Lounge on that one?
It's on the Chaise Lounge. Is that on the album? Yeah, I think they did. Yeah. And basically that's how it started. And it's still going. They never stopped. It's been going ever since. And they're releasing Rialto and Ash albums very soon.
Talking about Ash, have you heard Ash's new single, the song for the Beetlejuice movie?
No.
That's brilliant. They've done a cover of Jump in the Line. They've done.
Oh, Jump in the Line. Yeah, that's brilliant.
It's fucking
have
brilliant.
They really?
Yeah.
Have they really?
I saw them do it at Shine On. I thought, this is fucking brilliant. Like, this is a perfect cover for Ash. And they've re-released it. Well, they've released it now for the film. And it's just, the video is brilliant as well. So check it out for sure.
All right, I'll put that on the
like it.
on the playlist. That's great.
Yeah, it's really good.
I just made a note.
Really good.
So yeah, he released Pandemonium in 2022, 2023, and it's really good. But it comes up at the end of the interview. But basically, running through the story is these kind of diary entries, and they're about a very real and very determined suicide attempt that he had basically the New Year's Eve in 2019, and he kind of the diary just kind of goes through leaving the house on his way to trying it for the first time, and going to hospital and recovering and everything like that. And it's extreme, but it's done with his kind of usual humor and stuff like that, but it's very powerful and moving and funny, and it's just an incredible read, man. It's it's really, really good. And that's Simon Williams, man. What a guy.
All right, let's have a listen to the interview, and then we'll reconvene and have a chat about it. Here's Simon Williams from Fierce Panda. Enjoy.
All right, thanks for coming on the podcast. Where do we find you zooming in from today, Simon?
I'm zooming in from my back garden in the middle of Suffolk.
Very nice.
It's a lovely, lovely summer's day, and I've been pottering around with me puppy dog, and I've been stayed 2 nights in London, doing all the cramming in meetings and gigs,
Right.
So gently recovering from Dream Bag's Jaguar shoes last night.
Oh, tell me about that.
It was supposed to be our night. We do a monthly night there called Club Hoopla, and I do it in conjunction with Kelly from End of the Trail. But because of South by Southwest and general lethargy, we hadn't actually got round to booking a proper lineup for last night. And luckily for everyone involved, there was a sister venue, Two Palms, needed a show to be moved, so we took that show, and we gladly sacrificed our night.
Sure.
And they put on Corda. That was the only band we had booked. They were first on, and then the headliners were a bunch of guys from Brighton called Hutch, who had the most alarming flared trousers I've seen since about 1973.
Oh dear!
And the music was definitely from that era as well. But it's kind of, it makes a change.
Sure. That's good. Well, on the podcast, most of us are from the Brighton area, so it's good to hear that it's still going on there. That's great. Well, speaking of that, I mean, what kind of releases are you or are the label working on at the moment? Anything exciting?
Well, I mean, it's exciting to me. I'm not sure about for anyone else, but we've got Ash on tour with The Darkness at the moment.
Oh yes, yeah.
So I'll be going to Cambridge tomorrow rather than dealing with the perils of Wembley Arena on a Saturday night. And their album, the second album for us, is due out September the 12th, and then which is virtually 2 years to the date since the last one. So that's fast work. The Rialto album is out on April the 25th, and they go on tour with Supergrass in the spring, and then they go on tour with Sleeper in October.
Oh wow!
And then just to prove we haven't actually turned into cooking vinyl, we've just signed a band called Camber, who are three 17-year-old kids from Kent, who I mean, kind of the demo just sounds like Ed Sheeran doing Sam Fender. Kind of incredibly good quality, and there was a question of just seeing them live and making sure that they were slightly better than that, and they were much better than that. Sounds they had a lot more rock and roll pizzazz, and they've also got youth on their side as well. So yeah, they haven't got anything online, which is a rarity even for us.
Wow.
And hopefully they'll be doing our alternative Great Escape back in Brighton. So on the 16th of May.
Brilliant.
All roads lead to the abandoned Royal Albion Hotel.
Sure. All right, that's great. Okay, let's go back to those glorious days of the past. I mean, can you tell us about getting into music as a kid? Were you a proper full-on 80s indie kid?
Well, weirdly enough, we just started our own podcast, and we did the first episode yesterday, and it's kind of basically birth, school, rock, death. So the guest chooses 4 tracks, and then you roll with that. But it occurred to me: birth, school, rock, death.
Rock. How do you define rock?
The career. Well, for an artist, I've said to them, it's kind of the song where which really made you think you're a serious artist, whether it's one of your own or whether it's someone else's. So, for example, yesterday's guest was Jed, who's in Opus Kink, and he used The Comet of Coming as an example. But the thing that occurred to me with school is the fact that I always said for me it would be ELO, but that's not true, because school's 7 years and the most formative years of your life. So I'd have to go for 2. So it would be ELO being my first love, and still, to this day, I still absolutely love Out of the Blue. But I guess my tipping point was the Farmers Boys. So listening to John Peel in 81, 82, and I just got absolutely fixated on them. They were my dream bands. I understood the concept that ELO were absolutely massive. They were doing like 8 nights at Wembley Empire or whatever that was.
Sure.
And their records went to number 1. Farmers Boys records didn't go to number 1, and they weren't doing 8 nights anywhere. So
for people that might not know the Farmers Boys, who were they?
So they were 4 guys from Norwich, and they were on an indie label called WAP, and they just released about 3 or 4 tremendous indie singles. And did loads of John Peel sessions, and basically played around with, who did I see them with? Strawberry Switchblade, Orange Juice, Aztec Camera, Prefab Sprout, all those kind of bands. And I this is where the first time I discovered the world of communicating. You'd write off to the back of the record, and they'd send you stickers and letters and fanzines and things like that. And they were the first band I really idolised. And I almost went to see them again the other day. Actually, they're playing as the McGilty Brothers now, and they've gone like totally Americana, and they're obviously ancient. But I think the bass player's son plays guitar, and they go and play the Boogaloo at 3:00 on a Sunday afternoon, like old indie kids should do.
Sure,
Growing old absolutely disgracefully. And then, as I say, and then that basically, that going to see the Farmers Boys play live at the Lyceum and the venue of Victoria, that opened up so many doors to me. It opened up, friendships which last to this day. The concept of the charity shop overcoat and the floppy fringe and the rolled up Levi's and the DM boot, things like that, and exposure to Orange Juice, Aztec Camera, the Chameleons, so many fantastic bands like that. And then onwards, and then obviously, they signed a terrible deal with EMI, so they were label mates with Kajagoogoo, and obviously the Smiths and the House Martins and everyone else just completely, stole their Jangle Pop Thunder, which just made them even more glorious to me.
Right. Sure. And you mentioned they sent fanzines and stuff, so you had a fanzine yourself, right, at the beginning?
Yeah,
how did that start?
I was just going to these gigs full of all these indie people with their long overcoats, and then I just clocked. I think the first one was probably the Legend at a House Martins gig, and he was just standing there by the bar with this kind of weird Little Red Riding Hood basket, and it was
who's the Legend?
Everett True.
Oh, okay.
Famously, he was the reason why Alan McGee set up Creation Records. The Legend was the first release. And he was quite the character, and I just thought that looks like fun. And then I kind of gathered there were a few more. Trout fishing in Leytonstone was one just down the road from us in Walthamstow, and then there was blah blah blah, and a pack of lies. Every gig you went to, there were either one or two fanzine sellers, and then by the time I did my fanzine, I'd be selling it at Panic Station, which was this kind of free Monday night club at Dingwalls, and you go along and see bands. I don't know, like Thousand Violins, Stone Roses, Happy Mondays, Prime Scream, those kind of bands. Just after C86, and just before, that kind of the 5 minutes between C86 and Manchester.
Sure.
And there was this geezer selling his fanzine, and it turned out to be Steve Lamacq and Pack of Lies, which was like mine, only more serious and furious, very, very much like our personalities. In fact, we're still today, and he's still the raging one, and I'm the one who's just thinking up stupid puns.
Sure. Was it difficult to get interviews and stuff like that? Did you just walk up to people?
Yeah, I mean, you'd literally just turn up backstage before, during sound check, and just say, if you got that. Most bands were absolutely delighted because they weren't doing anything else, and most of them were really welcoming. And for the first sort of 4 issues, I was just making it up. And then by the time we did the 5th issue, I think I was working at the NME at the time, so we could upgrade it slightly and get people like the Darling Buds. But initially, it was just basically, you're looking at going to ULU or Queen Mary's College in Mile End, and just go and find the Soup Dragons or the Wolfhounds or bands like that. It was a really good scene around East London then, because you had bands like McCarthy and the Wolfhounds coming from sort of Barking and Romford, which is literally just a bus ride away from Walthamstow. So that was very handy. We also had Walthamstow Assembly Halls had this shit hot new promoter from Scotland called Dave McLean, and he wasn't actually that shit hot, but he was very, very efficient, and he was a really good booker and a really good promo person, and he understood that the guy in the local record shop, Ugly Child, knew everything about every new band. So he basically said, who should I book apart from Gary Glitter and Doctor and the Medics? We got, when did we get? The Fall, the Icicle Works, Half Man Off Biscuit, The Wedding Present, Properly Yourself, everything like that. And it's literally, and I ended up, we could sell our fanzine there and just go and find all the bands, and kind of the access was absolutely brilliant. It was. I mean, weird looking back on it, really, isn't it? I don't know where I got the gumption from.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and this may be complete nonsense, but do you think that like podcasts are like the new fanzines? Like, we just contact people and ask for interviews, and weirdly, some of them say yes. The other part of the podcast is filled with whatever crap we come up with. There's less scissors and glue, of course. But is there anything to my ridiculous theory, half thought out theory?
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. Judging from our efforts yesterday. I mean, it's taken me a very, very long time to understand them because it sounds a bit anal, but I really, I've always loved radio. From listening to the Farmers Boys on John Peel or Kid Jensen, to XFM, to Six Music when it was good. I've always been defined by that, and the structure of the day. It's 4 o'clock. It's time to put the kettle on and listen to Steve Lamacq, whatever.
Sure.
And with podcasts, I always get very confused by them and just think, well, there's no timings on it. I don't know where I am. You're specifically vague. Because you don't know when it's going out, so you can't say. So our single is out next week because you don't know when next week is.
Right.
So it
can be listened to at any time. Yeah.
Which makes it exactly like a fanzine because you're interviewing these people and say, oh yeah, I'll be out in 2 months, and of course it takes you 2 years to actually get it out there. By which point you missed all the release dates, so you do keep the interviews as vague as possible.
Yeah. We do that all the time.
I think culturally it probably is, because it's a very, the fanzine's very, very informal and very, not niche. That's not the right word because.
But it can be, right?
But it's also, and it was also, very, 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 very D2C. That's the other beautiful thing. You didn't have to, the nearest you got to it was, maybe restocking Rough Trade West when they sold out. But 99% of sales were literally at gigs, direct to people, which was always a really, really nice touch. And that's how I ended up working for the NME. I was well,
let's talk about that. Yeah, how did you end up working for the NME? Let's go into that.
I was selling my fanzine at a Pop Believe Yourself gig at Ulu on Mallet Street, and I saw a couple of girls hanging around, and I did my usual sales patter, like, "Hello girls, would you like to buy a fanzine?" And one of them said, "I've been looking for you," and it transpired that she was Helen Mead, who was the live editor of the NME, and that was it. That was my job interview.
Simple as that.
Yeah. It was kind of really weird.
So she'd read the fanzine, previous
completely
fanzine.
Normal. Yeah. And I think Steve had just joined just before me as a sub editor.
Steve Lamacq,
and it was that perfect timing, and virtually, I think.
So this is like 92, 93. Are we talking?
This was 1988.
Oh, that early? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah. And then the first singles page I did was 89, and that was Made of Stone by the Stone Roses.
Oh yeah.
And at that point, I think you probably had I think there were two trained journalists. Steve and Terry Staunton were the only people who knew shorthand, and virtually the rest of us had come from fanzines, whether it was Stephen Wells or James Brown or later on people like Johnny Cigarettes. And what I found was as you evolved through becoming an editor, becoming a live editor, you're immediately attracted to the next generation of fanzine writers, because you just think, well, if you can be asked to, waste 90% of your life with Pritt stick and glue, Pritt stick and glue, all the glues, and interviewing no marks in a backstage, student campus, and then actually go out on the road to sell these bloody things, then you've got the stamina, and you've definitely got the work ethic. And with a bit of tweaking here and there, no doubt you've got the sort of the writing chops as well.
Sure. I mean, you've mentioned a few names already, but I was, I mean, you might be able to tell from my background, I was a total NME kid, basically. Yeah. And those names, like you say, Johnny Cigarettes, Swells, Sylvia Patterson, April Long, yourself, Steve Lamacq, they were as familiar as the band names to us NME kids. Can you just indulge me? Can you give like a typical day in the NME office at the peak of all that was going on?
Typical day is getting to work about 10:30. Listen to the answer machine. Listen to the 57 messages that have been left. Go to the pub. Have a spontaneous editorial meeting. Go back to work. Put some pages through. Do some editing. Do some commissioning. Commission a few live reviews. Get some photographers on board. Do a couple of meetings. Go back to the pub. And then get a cab, normally to the West End, to go to the Metro or go to the Falcon and go and see 3 bands. and then get home about 3 o'clock in the morning, and then start all over again.
Oh wow, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And how long did you do that for?
I was there for well, I'm still doing it now. I was at the NME for 11 years, and I'd say that was pretty much it all the way through, to be honest with you.
That's amazing.
It just kind of everyone's horizons expanded along the way. I kind of started doing more gigs and putting out records and things like that. But the key thing was, I think it was just, I knew not everyone was like me, but that wasn't the point. While I was in charge of the new band section, everyone quite liked the idea of falling into line, and just phoning up a press officer and saying, "Can I get on the guest list for tonight, please?" They go, "Oh, blimey, yeah. Really?" It's supposed to be the other way around. I was supposed to chase you for I left you 56 of those 57 answering messages saying, "Are you going to come and see my band?" And this time it's the enemy phoning them up directly and then saying, "Any chance for +6?"
Right.
Everyone else wanted to turn up, and and I just thought it was really, I just loved the fact that I'd grown up with the idea that gigs were really, really welcoming places, and I just loved the fact that if you wanted to find anyone from the NME, press officers knew where we were at lunchtime, so they could just come and find us and buy us a pint and sell us their latest wares. And in the evening, we're fairly, by the time we were actually putting on NME nights and putting on Fierce Panda nights, again, we were just the most visible people. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
there was immediate access, and so much of the good work did go on in the pub or in the venue.
Sure, it's amazing. Which band were you most starstruck by that you interviewed or went out on tour with or whatever?
I suppose it was just all the ones that are more off the beaten track. I interviewed Jonathan Pierce from when he was at Capital Sport, and that was really exciting because I really like my football commentaries. It'd be more people like Scott Walker or Burt Bacharach,
right? Sure,
because with bands, I don't know. I didn't really, you were kind of. I was never really unleashed on anyone absolutely massive. My levels probably, front cover level would be Prodigy or Garbage, but even then I'd done Garbage's On Piece like 5 years earlier.
Right.
Most of my communication with bands was just so early on. If it was on the road with Oasis, it was in Newport TJs.
Sure.
There's no time to. There's barely enough time to get drunk, let alone get starstruck. Probably someone like Scott Walker, or even, actually someone like Mark Hollis from Talk Talk.
Right.
That was really good because I really, so many of us were in absolute awe of him. But then, after 5 minutes, he just talks like a bloke from Tottenham. You're just kind of, and he's more normal than me. So that was the main thing, and I couldn't really be asked, if I was a journalist now, I wouldn't want to be hanging out with Justin Hawkins. I just can't be asked with a theatre of it all,
Sure. Well, speaking of that, were there any complete twats that you just didn't get on with at all?
Not knowingly. I mean, there's a couple of bands I tried to avoid because I just didn't really like them. But, especially round about 96, 97 with Britpop. There was some terrible bands.
We're going to talk about that in a moment. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, most of the time, maybe I'm just being soft as shite here and I'm just missing the point. But 99 times out of 100, I can't think of any. When you're with bands, when you're doing the early stuff with bands, it tends to be fun because it's the most exciting time. They're getting their first live reviews, they're getting their first radio play, they're getting their first releases. It's very, very hard to, even Radiohead were absolutely an absolute joy to work with. It's only when they start hitting the rock and roll roller coaster and they have their peaks and troughs. And if you catch them in a trough, then I can imagine it could be bloody horrible. But and also I was a very vacuous kind of writer as well. I was very much there for the good times and the positivity. Wasn't if we ever got really upset with a band, we just unleashed Johnny Cigarettes or Swells.
Sure.
By no stretch of the imagination was I a Rottweiler when it came to
right.
When it came to music journalism. I'm proud and ashamed to say, because I wasn't a hard-bitten journo by any stretch of the imagination.
Right, let's get on to the start of Fierce Panda then. So, well, I'm wearing my Smash T-shirt in honor of the first Fierce Panda release. And when did you first start seeing those bands like Smash and these Animal Men playing live?
I think it was around about 83, wasn't it? I'm looking at obviously
93.
Facebook at 93. Yeah, I always get my decades confused.
What's
I
the
used to get my
difference? What's
years
the
confused.
difference?
Now I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
entire decades confused.
Sure.
So yeah, end of 93, I think they started appearing, and there was like I found a gig thing for the other day from like the 100 Club around about October that year, and it was Echo Belly and Smash together. Obviously, the core bands were these Animal Men and Smash.
Yeah.
They were the ones that really worked best together. But yeah, and then it's kind of like Shed 7 were part of it for 4 minutes because they put that first single out on their own indie label. Then they had Elastica were part of it for 3 minutes. In fact, everyone was part of it until they invented Britpop, basically.
Sure.
And everyone decided to go over there instead.
Well, I mean, what you say, I mean, how much responsibility do you take you and Steve take for kind of bringing the whole kind of idea of the new wave into being? And I asked that from a place of love. Like all of us in the podcast, we loved new wave. So it's not a sneering question. We loved it.
No. I mean, we were just reporting on it. To be honest with you, the groundwork had been done. Obviously, the bands had written the songs and decided to wear all the Adidas T-shirts. And certainly Smash and these Animal Men both had very savvy managers. You had people like Kathy St. Luce absolutely wholeheartedly endorsing it. You had the fanzines writing about the bands. There was the cultural scene was already there. And of course it was the homegrown riposte to grunge, and it wasn't a homegrown riposte to grunge because everyone loved Nirvana, but by the time we got onto the 27th Sub Pop reissue, whatever, it was kind of like, let's have some fun. And we really did love the bands. I remember like there was one night when we Smash were on Top of the Pops, and we were all crammed into the photocopying room, and watching some portable telly, about 8 of us, just cheering them on. We thought it was one of the most magnificent moments of all time. But at the same time, with any kind of scene, just kind of gently mocking it at the same time and trying to keep it as going as long as possible. But Smash were a very complicated bunch. And both of them ended up on essentially a Virgin subsidiary. So as soon as the sales, but I think it was there were so many, there was a film about it, and for so many people, it was a really crucial turning point in their lives. Again, like me and the Farmers Boys, it was people took to those bands, and they were their bands.
Totally.
It was, the fact that the Enemy endorsed them just made them feel even more worthwhile. We weren't claiming the glory by any stretch of imagination. The whole point of the Shagging in the Streets EP was it was a tribute to that scene. Tribute to the fanzine, and even when it came to designing the artwork, we're back to the Pritt stick and indeed the glue. It was exactly like doing a fanzine, cut and paste, but with scalpels and Pritt stick.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you then? What was your key moment with it then?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, like with the new wave, it was definitely, I mean, I guess seeing Smash on Top of the Pops was it, I guess. I mean, we were into them by then already, but like the T-shirts and stuff, like those Army Surplus T-shirts, we went into Brighton and found them in this shop, and I got to see them live as well around that time. And it just meant everything. They were just like the cool, especially these Animal Men. They looked cool as fuck, and Smash had the rhetoric. These Animal Men had the look. Compulsion we loved as well. We've had all of these on the podcast, by the way. And I don't know, man. It was, and I guess you and Steve writing about it was the spark that must have done it as well, right?
I still Compulsion. I still can't work out why they were never on Fierce Panda. Obviously, they didn't need us.
Right.
They'd already gone to One Little Indian, but they were absolutely terrific, weren't they? Really,
mate, so good. Yeah. So you say you got the Shagging in the Streets EP out? Was there like a label manifesto or an underlying philosophy when you started?
No, not at all. No, it was a complete tribute to that scene, and it was going to be one record, and that was it. That was the entire philosophy. That's why, as I always say, that's why it's called Fierce Panda. If we'd known we'd still be here 31 years later, we might have put a bit more effort into thinking of the name for the label.
I mean, but the puns and the silliness was there from the start. I mean, how important was that, or is that, to the label?
I don't think the first ones were that. We're a bit more political to begin with. I think the kind of Shagging the Streets thing. I think the front cover was like pictures of the '68 riots, and then Crazed and Confused was, eat your parents, I think was one of the quotes on the front, when we just had,
very good.
Ash and Supergrass and all those kind of bands. And then and I think it was more as John Harris and Paul Moody moved away to more sensible hobbies, I think, and I took over more and more. I think the puns, I mean, by the end of it, I mean, we were just coming up with puns and thinking, right, now we've got to go and find 6 bands to make the EP. Yeah. Hotter Than July being
right. Sure. Do you have a pun that you're proudest of?
I was thinking about this morning, and it's I've just literally finished a book about collecting crisp packets, and I decided.
I was just you've been looking at your T-shirt this whole time. I need to know the end of your T-shirt. Love crisps.
Hate racism.
Hate racism. Love it.
And it's from Alco Pop Records.
Oh, right. Great.
The mighty Alco Pop.
Yeah. Sorry, please continue. Go on.
Yeah. So and I decided that exactly like doing the fanzine, or exactly like doing the EPs, it's just a multi-layer of just puns and quips and inside jokes. And it's, I'm not sure if I enjoy it. I think it just has to come out. It's my kind of, it's a literary Tourette's. So there's 24 chapters, and every chapter is a pun about prawns. So it's, prawn in the USA, prawn to be wild, I was prawn to love you, etc., etc.
I mean, the possibilities are there, aren't they?
I know.
Yeah.
I was going to say the possibilities are horrendous, but they're not. They're
not. Yeah.
Literally 25 songs out there. Yeah. Prawn in the title, you can change to prawn. And again, a lot of that is obviously from the enemy. You go down. The sub-editors, half their job was spent correcting terrible copy written in the pub, and the other half was just coming up with headlines.
Sure.
The average NME front cover had 3 headlines on. You'd have the main headline, and then there'd be another sub headline, and then you'd have just underneath the NME logo would be the killer headline. I think when they had Inspiral Carpets on the front, it just said underlay, exclamation mark. literally the greatest joke of all time.
That is good.
Surrounded by it. It wasn't me leading the way with the puns by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, the Shame did a similar one, didn't they? On top of the pots with the underlay.
Yeah. No, it was literally occurred to me this morning that it's a terrible. If people think it's painful for them, they should imagine what it's like for me walking around with all these puns waiting to burst out in the eardrums.
We've mentioned it already, but Britpop, I mean, the timing of the label was pretty perfect, right? So Britpop was about to kick off. It hadn't quite kicked off big time just yet. You were in London going to gigs all the time. I mean, when did you kind of get a sense that there was something in the air, and did you like it?
Yeah, I think it was there was absolutely no gap at all. It kind of segued from, I think when I went on the road with Oasis, it would have been 94, and a week earlier I'd been on the road with Smash. So it really did merge together. As I said, Shed 7, Elastica, all those bands had all come through the system.
How were Oasis at that early stage? Were they rock star wankers yet, or were they okay?
Absolutely, they were just really, really sweet, just very DIY.
Even Noel?
Yeah, absolutely. The boys were still getting on. It was still the good times. There was no pressure. There wasn't a huge amount of drugs, so there wasn't paranoia. It was just the 5 of them driving themselves around in a transit van, basically.
Wow.
And them just being allowed to find their way, I guess. Columbia had already come up, and they were just, the tour had been booked. I think it was with the Whiteout tour, wasn't it? And basically, I think ostensibly it was supposed to be a co-headline, and then obviously within the first couple of dates, Oasis that just wasn't going to work because everyone was going to leave after Oasis, and I think Whiteout understood that. And so saw them at reviewed the Water Rat show. We all went to see them at the 100 Club. And so we kind of had a really, really good relationship with them. I don't think none of us thought they were absolutely astonishingly amazing, because it was just a bit silly, the Coca-Cola song and the T-Rex and the silliness, just the I Am the Walrus, whatever. But people just, you could really tell that people genuinely loved them. And again, you know, that bottom level, they weren't hyped or anything. They were just blokes playing some gigs, and then the momentum just built in a really, really genuine way. And then I think it got to that tipping point where a lot of bands either crash or burn, or just generally, you know, crash and burn. And then the notoriety started kicking in, and then they started getting into the tabloids on a daily basis.
Sure.
And it was all the drug busts and the girlfriends and the fighting.
Sure.
And by which point they were just absolutely unstoppable. But certainly the groundwork came first. The fans were already there by the time they started, you know, being thrown off the radio.
Sure. I mean, like Ash, we mentioned them already, but Ash and Supergrass, kind of two of the bigger kind of Britpop bands to pass through the fierce Panda ranks. I mean, how did you approach them, and how did they get onto Fierce Panda?
I think it was just we just had that again, just sitting and having an editorial meeting in the pub, probably in the Blue Posts on Tottenham Court Road, and it's just, you know, you're surrounded by bands, and especially then when you've suddenly got this new surge of homegrown talent, and it's a question of like how can we contextualize this for the kids? And we really did have conversations like that. And then 5 minutes later, we've got Smash, we've got Ash, from Smash to Ash. So we had Ash, Supergrass, Credits a Nation, Gorkies, and then we need to find like 2 more teenage bands. That's it. And then I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I think Tribute to Nothing sent me a demo the other day, and I think they're all 16-year-old kids. And then the question is just getting in touch with, obviously, you know, we knew all the bands already because we'd either reviewed them or seen them or whatever. In fact, if we'd have seen them, we would have reviewed them straight away. And then very, very easy. Just a little phone call to either the PR person or whatever. That would be the point of call, because that would be the person at the time who we dealt with the most. And then the PR person would be thinking, "Fuck me, the Fierce Panda want to put your band on their record, and it's literally going to be, you know, on the NME playlist for the next 6 months." Yeah. Very few bands turned us down, put it that way.
Interesting. How did it work? I mean, how much in terms of like contracts and payment and like that kind of side of it? How did that work? It's just like one song.
It just worked brilliantly. We just licensed the tracks, didn't pay for any recordings, and we worked out, because it ended up being double vinyl. We worked out
double 7 inches, right?
Yeah, if it retailed at $3.99, then basically it just broke even. So
you paid them a fixed sum.
No, didn't pay anything at all. I think the only one was we probably had to pay Warner's like £100 for a Green Day track. And I think they were just embarrassed to ask for that, but they felt as though they needed to do something.
So you licensed it from
department.
Okay, from their record company or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And then some of the tracks were unusual. I mean, the Blue Tones was I think song 7, which turned out to be, I think, Blue Tonic under another. You know, and then it was just alternate versions, because I mean at that point bands didn't have that many songs, so we wouldn't expect exclusivity or anything like that. So I think, you know, possibly These Animal Men is probably the top of the pops version. Supergrass was Caught by the Fuzz, which had already come out on a tiny label in Oxford. Ash did a cover version of Hell and Love. You know, it was kind of very much whatever they wanted to do. And some of it, you know, some of it's kind of really, really rare. But it was just capturing a moment in time. We didn't sweat over
just getting them out there, right? Yeah. It's brilliant. Yeah. Well, let's talk quickly about some of the famous stuff, and we have to really. And then I'll ask if it's okay. I'd like to ask about a couple of the lesser known ones. I mean, the big ones, Coldplay, of course. I mean, what do you think you saw that others didn't at that time, that early on?
Do you know what? It was just my friend Andy Pointy, who did a book called Anoint My Head last year, which is basically how he rescued success from the jaws of defeat, or the other way around. And he was managed by Ricky Gervais, and you know, he was in a band, and he'd go and see, you know, Suede and Blur and Radiohead, and just think, oh, we can do that. We're better than that. And the whole story is like how he couldn't do better than that, and how his manager became more famous than he ever could, and the frustration and things like that. And now he's just delivered his second book, and it covers that kind of period from sort of 96 to 2001. And in that time, he managed Tiny 2, who were released. We co-promoted gigs by Campag, Velocet, Ultrasound, Lo-Fi All Stars, and Coldplay at Club Panda. And he was just reminiscing about the fact that, you know, he's in his words, you know, the singer had stupid hair, and he cracked jokes between songs, and he wore a tank top.
Yeah.
But his different perspective was the same as me. He thought the songs were brilliant. And what he saw that I didn't see was that the first time they did the Bull and Gate for us, they were first on, and the Peccadillos were headlining, and there was a terrible problem with the sound. And at this point, you know, for all the bands, they had to be incredible. You know, this was the biggest A&R gig they'd ever played in their entire lives. And in the end, it overran so much that Coldplay didn't get a sound check, and Chris had to go over to them and say, after them sitting around for 2 hours, not being able to do anything, you know, Andy had to say to Chris, look, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do a 20-minute set, and you'll have to go on when there's doors open. And he said they went absolutely fine. They were just happy to be there. They were literally happy to be there, and there was no manager, no one around them kicking doors or causing a fuss. And then they got their payback, you know, 4 months later when they came back and headlined the Bull and Gate. But this time, 26 years ago, on April the 1st. And they didn't dick around and spend 4 hours sound checking and fucking up for the other bands. They just got on stage, all done within half an hour. Played the greatest gig of their entire lives.
Well, there you go. That's the attitude to have, I guess, right?
So I'd say ruthlessly ambitious, but absolutely you wouldn't notice it. Absolutely charming people.
Man. I remember when the single came out, and I saw it in the shop, and I didn't buy it because I didn't like it, and I probably should have bought it now. In retrospect,
good reason, to be fair. Yeah. I mean, even I've got used to that. I've got, you know, that whole thing about, you know, when we did the singles, moving on from the, you know, 6-track EPs for the singles, a lot of times did actually say, look, you know, give us your best song, because you know, you might split up next week, or you might get run down by a bus, or you might overlook it, or you'll get signed to a major label and you'll re-record it in 6 months' time. And that's why we got Bruce Pristine and All You Good People, and, you know, virtually every band's best song at that time. And the only two bands where we didn't was Idlewild. We got Chandelier, which I love, but everything on Captain is better than that.
Is it though?
I love that. I love that video.
I wanted to ask about Idlewild. I've got the single here.
Fantastic.
It's got the famous flight of stairs, falling down a flight of stairs on the run out groove, of course.
Absolutely, yeah.
Why do you say it's not as good as the other stuff on Captain? I fucking love Chandelier, man. Come on.
Okay, well that's really good. I mean,
go on. Tell me why.
Ditto. I just think they've got better songs, but I just went with the flow, and it was fine.
Sure.
And again, he makes it pretty unique. And the same with Brothers and Sisters, because I wanted Shiver or Bigger Stronger. I thought they were much better songs. But the band chose that, and in the end, it's been beautiful for us, because I think there's only been one reissue. They did a piano version on, you know, CD3 of whatever track from 2001. So it's kind of a unique thing. And actually, as Andy did say the other day, he said it's a fucking great song. It really is. It just sounds like it cost 450 quid to record in Southgate. So you know, I think that's Chris's thing. I don't think Chris is too proud of it.
What's your take on Coldplay these days? Do you listen to their new stuff?
I mean, I just go to the shows and just think it's just mind-boggling. I kind of, you know, I had to take about 10 years off because I just couldn't take the fact that they were making so much money and I wasn't. And so, you know, if you catch us on a good day, you'll find myself and Debs Wild, who originally found them before I did. We go to the Spoons in on Highbury Corner and get a bottle of rosé and laugh heartily about the fact that, you know, that's the best we can afford, and yet we both invented the biggest band on the entire planet. You've got to laugh, etc. So I'd say, I mean, they're still absolutely lovely to deal with. Whenever we want to do anything, you know, any reissues, they're there. We give them approval. You know, the last single we did on Bio Vinyl, all that kind of thing. And then we got to Clash. They're really, you know, they say, can you put your reissue date back by a month because our album's coming out then, but no one knows about it yet because obviously their operation, their operational dynamic is slightly more efficient than the American military's. And I've been, they gave me. I think it's interesting. They changed between we reissued it. We did a 20-year reissue, and then we did a 25-year reissue. And the difference was when we did the 20-year one, they agreed with everything on the press release. But they said, "Can you just take away all reference to 20 years?" The way that Coldplay is constructed is they're the Peter Pens of
Peter Pens.
Peter Pens of Ruth. That's why they work with BTS. That's why they work with Rihanna. They want to be constantly now and constantly churning their crowd. And we totally understood it. Whereas since then, probably after the Pandemonium book came out, I think they kind of maybe a combination of rereading back their own story and just generally having kids and being maybe a bit more relaxed in their own skin meant that they're more than happy to embrace that kind of idea of the 25 years. I mean, that's why they've never done a greatest hits. Probably every year, Parlophone probably say, right, time for that greatest hits then. That's just going to be in the top 10 next 50 years, like whatever the Oasis one is. They've always refused. And they never needed to because Chris has got just a constant churn of new songs, like Me and My Puns, and slightly more useful and profitable. But Chris is the same way with Melodies. They're not contractually obliged to do anything anymore for the rest of their lives. They're absolute multi-millionaires. But still, here's another album, and it's just I find it fascinating. Do I listen to a lot of it? I find I'm in that general queue of people that thought that Parachutes and X and Y are probably the best because they've probably got the most resonant songs.
Sure.
And I suppose they were still cooler then. But the live show, everything works, or apart from the Muppets, when they do the thing with the Muppets, I still don't understand that. that really confuses me.
Don't think I want to know, but yeah,
they just do it. So I mean, I can remember like when they, it's like some Wembley or Emirates, somewhere like that, a few years ago, and it's basically the first song has the fireworks, and then the second song has the balloons, and then the third song has the flashing lights on your wrist, like you're in Doctor Who, and then the fourth song has flying wombats dressed in tinsel kilts, and then the sixth song is yellow.
Sure.
No effects, no showbiz, just literally the song that everyone literally the song that changed their entire lives, which they wrote. There wasn't even written when I was working with them.
There you go. Yeah,
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it for a year until about a year after our single came out.
Yeah. All right, I'll go through a few more. So Supergrass, we've met Placebo, Blue Tones, Three Colours Red, Mogwai, Kinnicky, Bright Eyes, Interpol. We could go on. Who am I missing? Which other big ones am I missing?
I would say, I mean, whenever people go through the catalogue, they always.
It is mental.
Oh, did you do 3 albums with Death Cab for Cutie? And it's like, yeah, we did
do that. Yeah.
And I actually did go to All Points East last year and saw the Ben Gibbard ostensibly co-headline with himself, which was kind of weird because obviously it was the Postal Service first album and Transatlanticism, and it was absolutely brilliant. Obviously, it was a really, really good moment, especially some of those songs on Transatlanticism aren't meant to be played in front of 30,000 people. They're incredibly soft, intimate emo classics.
Sure,
and it was really interesting to. I was a bit annoyed at first because Death Cab were on first, and I thought that's not right. Postal Service was some kind of little blip, but then on the night they got it absolutely right. I've forgotten how brilliant Postal Service really were, and I think again, Ben's like another Chris Martin, another Damon Albarn. These people don't, they don't invent new projects to make more money. They invent new projects because they have to get the songs out. Whether the Postal Service songs didn't quite fit Death Cab, or in the case of Damon, he just basically walks around with notepads, and it's like, shit, I've got to invent. I can't put another Blur album out for 2 years. I can't do another Gorillaz album for 3 years. I can't. Where's Paul Simonon? He's desperately finding outlets for his music, which I find absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. He's great.
Apart from that, I'd say the best album we ever did was the Walkman.
Right. Yeah.
We did You and Me, and we did the Maccabees was probably the last big breakthrough band.
Yeah.
But in the end, we kind of got hoisted by our own petard, really, because we'd been known for, even when we were putting out 3 Death Cab for Cutie albums, we were still being known as the singles label.
Sure.
And we carried on. I mean, to be fair to us, we did do it. We were kings of the scene from 94 to 2006.
Okay.
And then in that year, we did the Maccabees, Boy Kill Boy, who signed to Universal, the Revelations signed to Universal, Gledhill signed to Sign through Sony, Dead Disco signed to 679, the Maccabees signed to Polydor, and I'm always miss one out. So between them all, that's probably, I mean, one of those bands on their own, that was £1 million deal. So put it all together, 250, all hyped, and I just realised that the system wasn't working. 6 of those bands barely even made it to the album release. Maccabees did best out of it, but I don't think they ever made Polydor any money. They just got more and more obscure as time went on. And I just thought, this is just stupid. No one wanted us. That was the weird thing. It was kind of obviously, there was one major that signed 3 of those bands. They didn't think, well, instead of signing these bands for 750 grand, why don't we just sign Simon, and then he could just bring the band in, and we can save ourselves £500,000. They didn't care for that. They didn't want that at all. And so we just thought, oh, fuck it. And then, we actually made that 2007. We said, that's it. No more one-off singles from now on. It's all albums all the way.
And it's been that way since.
Timed it perfectly, because that was just when vinyl, the 70s vinyl.
Nowadays, a 7-inch single is like 10 or 15 quid over there, right?
Yeah,
it wouldn't be possible. That model wouldn't be possible nowadays. And
also, I remember, routinely, that everything you've got there on your shelves routinely, 1,000 sevens, 1,000 CDs,
right?
And then by the time you had the new hipster labels coming along, you're looking at, I think that by the end of the noughties, it was like 300 copies, and you're just thinking, I can't do that. Once you've lived that dream, you can't do that. And as you say, luckily we managed to, pull in. I mean, obviously when we do 7-inches now, then we have to play the game. I think the Coldplay single's like 25 quid because it's double vinyl, bio things that saving the planet and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I remember, went on Rough Trade and Domino and things like that. It was like, 10 quid for a 7 single. It's like, what now? It's like 15, 18 quid for a 12-inch.
Oh, really? Oh, man, that's insane. Yeah.
But you have to do it, because the other interesting thing now is that now with the vinyl revolution, I think this is the 59th time in my life that I've been told the vinyl's cool again.
Sure.
It's fascinating, because you have to, it's not about serving the marketplace anymore. You have to serve all the people in between. So with someone like Rialto, for example, you've got the CD, that's absolutely fine, and then there's 3 different coloured vinyl, because you have to do one. The indie stores want an exclusive.
Yes.
Townsend, D2C want an exclusive, and then you just have to do a normal one for for Bandcamp and for the shops, and then it's up again, because there's been such a glut of super sexy coloured vinyl releases that that's not good enough anymore. So Sean at Rough Trade said, so what can we do for Rialto? So it's like some kind of batshit glow in the dark release, which costs another £2 a unit, which means it's even more expensive in the shop.
Oh, mate.
I'm not quite sure how sustainable that is.
Oh, I think so. It's good. I think so too. Yeah. I mean, I love my records, but I've given up buying coloured ones because it just annoys me now. I purposely don't buy it to try to send a message.
Really,
you know what I mean?
And it's really weird. The coloured vinyl was always seen as a really, really cheap, nasty option. You remember all those Walco albums, all those Top of the Pops compilations that were covered.
Right. Yeah.
They were always coloured vinyl. It was almost like a flexi disc. They were just so thin.
Right. Yeah.
Such poor quality. And then And then
And
obviously
picture discs as well, right? Picture discs were known for the bad quality. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. I've never knowingly played a flat picture disc in my entire life.
Sure.
But they were never meant to be played. That was the whole point of it, wasn't it? You have to get the picture disc. And if you're buying a band's picture disc, obviously you're buying, certainly for the Farmers Boys, you'll be buying the 7-inch and the 12-inch as well. Thank you, EMI Records.
Sure. Well, speaking of that, you mentioned your book earlier. You say in your book that Emily Kane by Art Brut missed the top 40 by 2 copies.
Yes.
I mean, well, I just want to let you know. I'm going to show you. I bought 2. I bought both the 7-inches. I did my part.
Right.
How gutting was that?
Well, I mean, it's probably with the benefit of hindsight, it's probably better for us that, rather than it went in at 39 and bombed out. I mean, it's fascinating looking back at the top 40 then. There were so many, about 8 new entries, all indie bands, whether it was like Razor Light or Duke Spirit. Duke Spirit went top 40.
I love the Duke
that probably
Spirit.
annoys me more than anything else.
Oh, man.
And I think, as I said in the book, it's really, kind of being on holiday and when in that kind of precise week when we should have actually just been going down to HMV and just buying all the copies. We never did, and I'm really pleased we never did. I've heard stories about labels that are our size literally sending out work experience to go and buy all those records. I won't mention the label, I won't mention the bands, but people always played those games, and I thought, that's just, what's the point in doing that? It's just it's horrible and ghastly, and I'm quite proud of the fact that 31 years without a hit. We're kind of defined by that. I think it makes us slightly more interesting. I doubt that Art Brut think the same way, but hey ho.
Sure. You mentioned the Peccadillos. I was a big fan of them as well. I got to see them live at the time. Yeah. Why do you think they didn't make it bigger? Got it. Yeah.
I think a lot of the time, I think it was just the cost of everything. I think certainly the reason why so many bands at that time didn't get to a second album was because the options were too dangerous for the band, for the label. The band, if the second option was like another £100,000 and the first album had only sold 5,000 copies, you're going to have to be a pretty damn convincing A&R man to convince your boss and the legal department and the accountants that this band's worth investing in.
Sure.
I mean, the Manics were lucky in the sense that they had Rob Stringer behind them, whose career path was more successful than theirs at the time, and he's stuck with them ever since. I can't imagine any other label indulging them with the Holy Bible, considering the amount of money that got into the first 2 albums. But then obviously they hit absolute pay dirt with the album after that. You can't be, it's almost like they had to get the Holy Bible out of their system and kind of recharge themselves. And then they were kind of, that was their farewell to Richie. And thereafter they're allowed to just be what they always wanted to be, which is just kind of, pop stars to a certain degree.
Sure.
And so I think that's a lot of the, it does sound conceited to say that we became part of the problem, but I think we did. It just I heard of A&R meetings when the first question would be, what a Fierce Panda put out this week. It became that easy, and you just think that wasn't the point of it. We weren't out there trying to discover the next big thing. We were just putting out whether it be I saw Smash exactly the same as I saw Coldplay. It's kind of, these would you like to do a single? That's it. There's no great thought to it. I mean, I kind of just signed a band the other day. And I was thinking, I wonder if should I look into this a bit more? And I just thought, I can't be asked. What's the point? What else am I looking for? Am I looking for reasons to not sign it? And I find that's what happens with a lot of major labels. They kind of question themselves inside out to the point where, is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? And then obviously they have to. And their model is so weird as well. I've had various opportunities to try and change the machine from the inside, and to be honest with you, just failed dismally at every single attempt. I was doing some A&R work for one of the Universal subsidiaries, and very, very, very nice head of A&R who's still with us and doing a marvelous job over at Island Records. And I said to him, look, we've got all these bands. We've got like the Heartbreaks. You like the Heartbreaks. You like Gold Art Assembly. You like the Crooks. There was like another band. I said, why don't we just sign all 4 of them for 25 grand each? But at this level, that's life-changing money. They can record debut albums, they can go on tour, we can get 4 amazing records, and one of them will have a chance of making it big. And he said, I love the logic, but I'd much rather just spend 100 grand on one band. No matter if, you know, they've done 5,000 albums and then the options.
I don't understand that. That's so interesting.
I know. It's the ego kicking in. It's the absolute ego. No, they've got their checkbook is bigger than everyone else's.
Right.
And so it shall ever be. And it's it's really, really frustrating.
That's interesting.
And now, you know, the world of A&R, I just don't understand it at all. It's just I don't know who these people are.
Sure. Well, back to Fierce Panda. I mean, you had Rabid Badger and Livid Meerkat, of course. I mean, were they strictly necessary, or was it just an excuse for more silly names? I mean, you didn't really do genres anyway, did you?
They were very necessary, because I kind of thought, because Fierce Panda has seen itself, it's like, you know, a flight of stairs, falling down a flight of stairs, and I just thought, when with Campaign Velocet and the Regular Fries, who kicked off Rabid Badger, this is more of a kind of, it's a more dancey, slightly groovy kind of thing. And then Rothko, Billy Mudhoney were a lot more extreme post
Rothko here.
Post rock, if you will, than anything off the label. So there was logic behind it. But in the end, it was kind of Fierce Panda killed them, really. I wanted Shit Disco to be on Rabid Badger. We'd much rather be on Fierce Panda, and then I wanted Youth Movie Soundtrack Strategies to be on Livid Meerkat, and they said, we'd much rather be on Fierce Panda. So the band's decided.
They did though. Okay, I thought that like a band like Electrolane, who I love as well. I thought they should have been on Livid Meerkat, right? But
you're absolutely right.
Panda.
Yeah. That was a great single. That was a really.
Man, I got a copy of it here as well. I got it.
Right.
There you go. Yeah. From Brighton as well. Back to Brighton.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Rothko as well, right? So I mean, how as the NME as well as at Fierce Panda, how kind of aware were you that you were kind of, hello, who's that?
This is Spirit.
Hello, Spirit. All right. I mean, how aware were you that you were kind of not creating a scene, but kind of like pulling people along with you? You know, like a band like Rothko, who I loved. I went to see them upstairs at the garage. Got the single here, and I think I wouldn't have listened to them if they hadn't have been on Fierce Panda, basically.
Right. Oh, that's.
I mean, how aware were you that you were doing that to indie kids, like making them listen to post rock, basically?
I did, again, it was just I like it, so someone else out there might like it as well.
Sure.
And you know, I just kind of remember meeting Rothko. I mean, I was such a Philistine that they said, I did the press release for them. They said, it's Rothko with a K. And I went, oh, okay, yeah. This was pre-internet. So they had to explain to me, a bit of a they obviously thought what an idiot this man is. And then I just found them absolutely fascinating. Really, really, really nice blokes. They absolutely loved bands like Kids of Distinction and things like that. And they just basically, just the classic story of they just got bored with drummers turning up late and guitarists being arseholes. So they just decided to form, I think it was when I found myself whistling one of their songs and it's just the 3 bass lines intertwined. And they played the Water Rats and they just go, here's a song about windows. Dom 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 dom. And I thought this is literally one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And Billy Mudhoney was just absolutely, I thought they were just absolutely brilliant band. Far too principled for their own good, far too principled and angry and everything like that.
They released an album last year, right? It's pretty good.
I know. I think a bit, again, they're kind of far too principled. I saw that. I was looking at the tour dates, just thinking, you're better than that. You're better than, Haggerston's Signature Brew. Yeah. You should be doing like the Scala or somewhere. I think they made an absolutely magnificent noise. And when the two of them jammed together on stage at the Water Rats, that was sensational. I think there were 5 basses on stage at one time.
Oh wow!
Which was kind of that set the dogs off the nearest 5 miles.
Sure. That's amazing.
But you're absolutely. I mean, it was never an attempt to. I never thought that we had. A kind of a following. It didn't really occur to me. But it must have done. Otherwise, I would have thought this is too weird for the normal Fierce Panda fans. So obviously, I must have been aware of it and aware of not wanting to take the piss out of them. And but yeah, it kind of, one of the annoying things with the book was that the whole chapter on that, the kind of our more left field stuff got cut out. You know, it's kind of
really?
we did the Talk tribute compilation. But we did I Like Trains. We did loads of really, really left field stuff, which I kind of listed. And the editor just sort of said it just reads like a list of records. And I went, yeah,
sounds good to me. But yeah, go on.
It's a book about a record company. And he said, yeah, I know, but I don't care. You know, and it's all the weird. He wouldn't cut out anything by Coldplay, but it was fine. It's only Rothko. Fuck them. And I thought that's poor guys. They've had their entire fucking recording career. But I just think it was the delight. I just remember the weird little things, as you said before, that bands wouldn't have normally got. And this is really, really niche. But I remember when John Peel was doing his Saturday afternoon show, and I think for some weird reason, Tottenham and Forest had just replayed on the Saturday afternoon in the FA Cup. Must have been some kind of fixture conjecture. I think Tottenham lost on penalties. And I flicked over to Radio 1, and John was playing Three Colours Red. And it even occurred to me at the time, I thought, you're only playing this because it's on Fierce Panda. This is not your kind of music in any way, shape or form, you know, but he loved Kaniki so much. That was his Festive 50 #1.
That's right.
And he'd sent us a postcard asking us if we didn't object too much, if we could possibly send him some of our records to actually play on air. And I remember that as a clear moment of, like, you know, the only reason why he's playing that record is because it's on Fierce Panda.
Interesting. Is it okay to ask about some of the more sensitive parts of your book?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, maybe it's best for you to talk about it. There's kind of a diary entry narrative running through the book. Is it okay for you to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the book came about when I'd come out. I'd been to hospital after a kind of a dismal series of events to try and end my life. So hence the pun about I couldn't even get that right. And then came out of there and everything was up in the air. I spent 2 weeks in the Royal Free Hospital, and about 13 people knew about it. And they all came in, and, you know, people I'd known for years and years and years, you know, real music industry friends, and they're all brilliant because I was obviously the Royal Frees in London, and my wife and child were up in Suffolk. So, you know, everyone gathered around and gave me far more support than I possibly, deserved. But at the time, I was on such a magnificent cocktail of drugs. It didn't really occur to me. And then I had to be basically cleared to be able to go home. And then everything was up in the air. There was talk about shutting the label down, which certainly wasn't the point. I'd left in my specific requests that Chris, the label manager, was going to take over Fierce Panda, and my death would be the rebirth of the label. I mean, that's how mad you can think. It didn't occur to me that people might just think, why would I want to do that? Sure. I'm thinking finally we'll get that, you know, that Coldplay benefit gig at Brixton Academy that we've been asking for 10 years. And every time we ask, Phil Harvey blushes deep red and goes, "Oh, I think we're doing 10 nights in Buenos Aires around that time." Sure. And you go, fair enough, you know, see you next year then. And then, you know, there was like, obviously you're not going to any gigs anymore. Obviously it's going to be a complete change of life, everything like that. And this was round about, you know, middle of February when everything was settling down and I was recovering at home. And then within 2 weeks, nobody was going to gigs because the world shut down. And then I people emailing saying, "How the fuck did you do that? Just because you can't go to the Green Man's
ruin everybody else.
None of us can." And that's it. I'm so sorry. I don't know how this happened. And then and as part of my recuperation, I kind of had a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist, and I think one of them just said, you know, can you write about your dad? My dad killed himself when I was, you know, I kind of, looking back on it, the suicidal father and the alcoholic mother might have, you know, kind of led me to think that, you know, this was all destiny. And I just did a little, you know, just remembered everything I could about the 5 years I had with my father. And then just thought, this is great. I really like this. And then just carried on, just didn't stop. And then it just became, you know, I'd kept a diary in the hospital just because, just for all the weirdness, really. And again, the puns had to come out somewhere. You know, they weren't going to come out through an intravenous drip, but the listening to Fix You down like some abandoned hotel corridor on the hospital radio at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then just lying there thinking, well, at least no one knows who I am, apart from those 13 dear close friends. No one else knows I'm here. And then the following morning, one of the specialists on the rounds, he said, "Oh, just to let you know, massive fan of Death Cab for Cutie. Transatlanticism got me through med school in Edinburgh." And basically every day, Leanne would come in and she'd say, "What's happened today?" And I go, "Oh, the doctor." And she'd just sigh and roll her eyes, going, "Jesus Christ, this is a woman who's we go to Whitstable on a weekend off, and there's always someone there with a demo waiting for us. Let alone she understands it if it's in the Camden Falcon or something like that, but you can't go anywhere." And
sure.
So so I just basically turned it all that, and then I remember it was Mickey from Lush's book was coming out.
Oh, we spoke to her recently as well. Yeah, I love that book so much. Yeah,
and then it's and I thought, who's putting that out? And I just basically dropped 9-8 a line, did a bit of research, dropped him a line. Sent him a little précis of the book. I was already halfway through it already. I wasn't by any stretch of imagination waiting for a publishing deal to make this work. And then I didn't hear a response for a week. And then I read the small print. They said, if you haven't got a book agent, then don't bother sending us anything. And I thought, well, I haven't got a book agent, so that was a waste of a good précis then. And then a day later, lovely publisher Pete, who signed Mickey and Will Hodgkinson and Bob Stanley and all those kind of people.
Oh, all right.
Of course, love to do a book on Fierce Panda. Absolutely an important label to so many people. Yeah. And then we went for a pub. We went to Stephen Mack's pub, the Ship on Old Street, and basically I had the hospital diaries in an envelope. And I said, "Look, there's another angle. There's another angle to the book, and I know exactly what I want to do with all these words. But just go away and read them at your leisure, and it might just send you running away screaming." And he got back to me and said, it was from the entire recovery process, from the grand malarkey, as we had to call it, through to the book's finale, really. Yeah. And he just said, I thought just doing a story about Fierce Panda will be good enough in itself, but this just takes us to so many different levels. And it just happened to tie in with, I went for a drink with Ted Kessler, one of my old enemy muckers, and it was just around that time, and all of a sudden, this entire generation of musicians, like Mickey couldn't gig, Ted had nothing else to write for, I couldn't review any gigs, so all of a sudden we had time in our hands, and with 9-8 and White Rabbit and publishers like that, there was an audience there, and it was even then, just like we started Fierce Panda, we didn't start in a vacuum. There are at least 7 or other magnificent little indie labels like Chemical Underground, people like that already already on our radar or just about to be launched, and the same with publishing. There was, all of a sudden, if I hadn't been aware of Mickey's book, then I probably wouldn't have ever been able to get this off the ground. So he was brilliant through the process. He was absolutely lovely and really sensitive. And now I'm now an ambassador for the Tonic Music mental health charity.
That's great. So how are you feeling these days?
I'm more than happy to talk about it. And it's great. 8 years ago, which is unbelievable. But hopefully, it can be a story of positivity for other people. That's, I just don't want it to be, I don't want to be that sad old man standing on the stage just going, for a little bit, you got to have a bit of, emotional resonance, and I certainly don't want to be mocking the whole thing and using too many puns. And that was one of the reasons why, ironically enough, the hospital diaries were the easiest bit to write, because they're completely distinctive, but
the humour makes it even more powerful, I think.
Yeah, but whereas the rest of it is just all the other chapters is just written like a bloody enemy journalist on Too Much Speak. Every multi-layered obscure reference is there, whereas the hospital stuff is absolutely just straightforward, straight down the line. This is it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very powerful, and really, really, really great book. It's really good. Really good.
Yeah, thanks. And the other thing is that the other reason why I keep going is the fact the amount of people who I still meet who are still discovering it for themselves. I was talking to. I went to a John Kennedy gig the other day at Signature Brew, and I met this lady who I think she was managing one of the acts. And she was talking about how she'd been driving down, and then she found out that I never met her before, but she found out that she'd been driving down listening to my audiobook. She was thinking, I was thinking your voice was familiar. That's because I've been listening to you for the past 3 hours on the M1. And so you get funny things like that, and and so there's still really good worth in it, and really good merit, and and I just have to keep reminding myself to actually keep promoting it. Really, I think it'll be interesting when the Chris book was finished. I said I've got to do one last final spelling run through. I mean, I've got a few people asking to proofread it, but I don't know. I've got a really weirdly bulletproof belief in my own writing, which I wish, which extended to the other slightly more feeble aspects of my life. And I said, you can read it if you want, and feel free to point out any glaring errors. I've read it about 10 times, and I've just realised the other day that Baby Sham is not spelt like the band; it's spelt like it's a miniature champagne. So
with
a
C.
And it's taken me 10 read-throughs to go like. Pete Doherty did not drink this drink, so that's a key. Although looking back on it, if it had got through, I would have said, "Oh, it's a pun," obviously.
Yeah, you would have got away with it. The
book's called Up the Packet, so
you would have got away. Oh, is it really? That's good.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, it was either that or Don't Look Back in Anger. So
sure, I mean, Up the Packet's better. It's better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've kept you a very long time. Is it okay just to ask a couple more questions?
Absolutely?
Is it okay?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
First of all, are you the indiest person ever?
No, I would say I did.
You've got to be up there. You've got to be up there.
No, I would reject that. I've helped so many. I think the Coldplay Association just kills that, full stop.
That's
anyway,
true. That's true.
And we've done deals, horrible, nasty deals with Island and Mushroom and people like that. And I think I did claim it once, and I hated myself for doing it. I thought that was just
I don't know. I think you've got quite a good claim for it.
I mean, I just remember people I met in the past. When we the first releases we did. I don't know. I was at King Tut's. There was a local indie person there, and they were berating me for putting barcodes on the record, that kind of thing.
Right, that's a sellout.
It's the kind of thing where if you want to get it into a shop, you kind of have to do those things now. If you want to sell 3 copies, then fine. I didn't want to point out the fact that actually the early barcodes were nicked off the back of biscuit tins and rat poison. But it's, and then someone like people who inspired me, Matt at Sarah Records. He was magnificent. That's a lovely label who did some amazing.
That is super. That's very indie. Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely. But you don't really notice it because they're really, really, really gently angry. But I mean, he was a massive inspiration to me because he did a fanzine called "Are You Scared to Get Happy," which is named after a hurrah song. So we're already in the realms of absolute hyper indiness. And then in the midst of all the Bodines, the June Brides, the C86 generation, he had a double page spread and written about a thesis about the Farmers Boys, designed in the style of A.A. Milne, literally Farmers Boys meets Winnie the Pooh. And I just thought, this is it. I can never do anything as good as this.
No, but that's verging. That's going on to the twee side of India. That's
what it is. But that's the whole point. I think it's because that. I mean, the sitting down cross-legged and all dressing like Edwin Collins, being bottled off in Scotland in 1979 and everyone orange juice, that kind of is slightly grated with me, but at the same time it didn't stop them from putting out some fabulous records. And even years later, there was this lovely little magazine that was it was called Smoke, and it was kind of a tiny little A4 glossy thing, and it was like a kind of like fanzine about London, and they just have pictures of everything that wasn't Big Ben and Covent Garden, kind of industrial units in Edmonton, and the wonders of abandoned railway lines and stuff like that. And it took me a couple of issues to realise that it was Matt from Sarah Records who constructed this. He'd basically just done this entire magazine in the style of a Sarah Records press release. And I just thought, this man is magnificent. But my other problem with him is the problem with the indie people is the fact they're really, really difficult to talk to because they're really, really shy, and they don't tend to get drunk because they're drinking orange juice, whereas I'm incredibly shy, but I'll get drunk and then I'll talk to anyone.
That's the way to do it.
So there's so many brilliant relations where we, you know, they never got off the ground because we were just two awkward indie people, you know, just avoiding eye contact.
Sure. What's it like running a record label in 2025 compared to 1994?
Well, I mean, obviously, I've amassed 31 years worth of experience in terms of putting out records, none of which is relevant in any way, shape, or form. It's tough. It's really, really tough, especially with bands, because, you know, even bands that we manage, you know, we manage them. Therefore, we do their press, we do their radio, we put out the releases, we organise all their gigs, and then, you know, and you try and plan, and it's good for about the first 2 years, and then it's almost like that next breakthrough gig is the time when it all starts to fall apart. It's okay, right? Okay, if you want to get the next level up, like Omir or something like that, that means you can't play London for 6 months. That's not us saying that. That's SJM saying that. That's your agent at 13 Artists saying that. You know, absolute proper music industry professionals. Otherwise, we just carry on playing, you know, 200 cap venues for the rest of your life. You know, if you don't take that break, you'll never be able to consolidate that crowd and then build on it. And the problem with that is it means all of a sudden the band's routine changes and they've got more time on their hands. And what we find with bands is when they have time on their hands, they start to angst and ponder and get bitter and twisted and start spending all the time looking at other bands and what they're doing, which is just absolutely career suicide.
Sure.
And so we've lost a couple of artists recently who've been developing for 2 years, and it's kind of really annoying. But I think with one of them, it was Chris who lost them, and I said, what, you know, did they give you a reason? He said, I didn't even fucking ask. The meeting lasted about 5 minutes, and I said, right, okay, thanks lads, good luck. And then just left them with their jaws on the floor because they'd obviously worked out a magnificent array of reasons why they were moving on. It was kind of, which would obviously just be patent, just be nonsense and bullshit.
Yeah.
And then another of our artists, he said, I'm moving on, I feel like my career's stagnating. And I thought, you just sold out 3 London shows in 8 months. That's not stagnation, but you know, you can only, but you've probably been subconsciously fighting to keep the project on the rails for the previous 6 months anyway, and it's just exhausting. And for us, you know, there's always going to be another band, but yeah, you get more and more wary. You know, it's really it's interesting with this band Camber, because my own logic is being thrown back in my face, but in a really good way. So they're managed by Feed from Sleeper, and we're talking about which track to go to first to with radio. And I'm going, well, you've got 4 tracks here. That's an acoustic one, so we've got 3 songs to choose from. I mean, they're all pretty good, really good. I'd say that track, Paranoid, probably got slightly more immediate impact when it comes to DJs and their producers and their attention spans, non-existent attention spans. And then Deed said, do you remember a band called Passion Fruit and Holy Bread? And I said, yeah, I did their on piece. Yeah, they became Mover and ended up on the same label as the Police. And obviously Passion Fruit and Holy Bread named after Stone Roses lyric. I did their on piece outside the Doggets by Blackfriars Bridge. I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I can remember, this band outside the Doggets at lunchtime in 1997 or something. And Deed said, I remember talking to them, and they came back and they said, Simon Williams just said, what you have to do is just put out your best song as the first song, because you might get run down by a bus, or you might split up, or you might end up the second album never coming out. And I thought, well, that's brilliant. You know, people do listen to me, bloody hell.
There you go. All right, final question, and we ask it to everyone that we interview. And the question is, which band from the 90s, because we're supposed to be a 90s podcast, which band from the 90s would you have liked to have been in, and why?
That's a very good question. Who did I?
Put you on the
Do
spot.
you know what? I'd say, weirdly, I'd say Green Day. because I really liked Green Day, and they were really nice kids, and they came through a real punk rock world. And when we were starting our own podcast, I was talking to some of the Teamsters, what choices would they have? What would be their school record? And one of them said, "I'm ashamed to say it would be Green Day." And I said, "Why are you ashamed of that?" And he said, "Well, it's not that cool, is it? It's the album after American Idiot, which was the cool record." And I thought, and I had to explain to him, but there was this thing called Dookie. And there was this time when they just played, the Dome and places like that. They didn't have an agent or a promoter. And they just went around Europe on the squat punk scene. Yeah. And they were literally the most authentic band who ever slept on our floor in Walthamstow, apart from Christ on a Crutch. So I'd love to be able just to say, I'm really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Not Trey cool. I'm really
very cool.
Cool. Yeah. Just to sort of, just to remind people, just because you become massively successful, it doesn't mean to say you haven't got some degree of integrity still left in your bones.
That's a great answer.
Thank you very much.
All right. Where's the best place for people to find out about new releases, listen to Fierce Panda stuff, buy your records? Where's the best place to do that?
I would just go for, I would say, fiercepanda.co.uk, but that means I'll have to update the stories. But I think we're going through another mad rush next week. I think there's an Ash single, and then they've re-out it then. So yeah, that's probably the best way. That's the source of all. I'm really proud of that website. It's got everything in there. It's got all the puns. It's got all the photos. It's got the entire history. It makes me happy. I could read it for hours. I should spend more time writing it rather than reading it. But it really is the core of all goodness.
And what's your podcast name when it comes out?
It's called it's good. I think everyone wants Panda to be in it, so I think it's going to be called the Pandemonium Podcast, aka Birth, School, Rock, Death.
Love it. All right, and very final question. People are going to be shouting at me for not asking it. What's your favourite crisp?
Gammon flavoured Smith's crisp from 1978. Meaty and deep purple. Absolutely perfect.
Great answer. All right, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording, but don't escape just yet. One moment.
There we go. Simon Williams. Could listen to him all day. One of those sort of guys, isn't he?
I think it's our longest interview so far.
Didn't seem it though, did it?
Didn't know. Yeah.
No, it didn't.
First outdoor one.
I couldn't watch it because you hadn't given me permission to the file.
No, I couldn't.
Oh,
watch it
really?
either, but I just assumed because.
Oh man, you missed his T-shirt. Oh, we spoke about it though. Love crisps, hate racism. I love crisps and hate racism.
That's my motto in life as well.
Is there anyone that doesn't love crisps and hate racism? Right? Surely everyone.
He loves crisps and racism.
Yeah, true.
Oh, I do love crisps. I think I'm addicted to crisps, actually.
So while we're on it, best crisp?
Salt and vinegar McCoy's. Very boring, I'm afraid.
Is this like past and present? Or
so this is the thing. I was thinking that it's like his podcast, like the birth, death, school thing, right? It changes, right? What would be your school crisp?
Well, can we have Chris no longer with us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So my favourite crisps of all time were the lamb and mint. I can't remember who made them. Lamb and mint crisps.
What the fuck? What? Lamb and mint? Talking about?
They also did like ham and mustard. And like gourmet crisps.
Get ham and mustard, lamb and mint. Right.
Yeah.
They're probably only available for a few weeks.
I used to really like Marmite Walkers as well. They do those now and again, don't they?
Yeah. When I was at school, I liked football crazies. I used to eat those a lot.
I like those American football guys, little American football guys, what they're called.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something, wasn't it? Yeah, I don't know.
Them.
Football crazies were good though. They were kind of like a round frazzle in taste.
Yeah.
Frazzles are good as well, right?
Frazzles.
I would probably choose Frazzles as one of my favourites.
No, Dave's not a fan.
Bacon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they kind of hurt your mouth, don't they, Frazzles?
I love a Frazzle.
But in Japan, I'd probably go for a Jaggerico over a cheese-flavoured Jaggerico long. I might have some here.
Jaggerico.
Don't like cheese-flavoured crisps either.
Oh, why are they not in a bag?
Because they're in a box, they're in a pot.
How can you? You can't just walk around with that. Well, I guess it's the same as a bag.
Oh, I don't like them.
You don't walk around. You're not allowed to walk around and eat over here.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
You're not allowed to walk and eat. It's against the rules of society.
Are you talking? They're not
Is
even
it?
lying, are you?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You're not
You
allowed
can't
to
walk down the
eat
street with a
public.
packet of crisps.
No. Well, you can, but it's not common. Eating in public's not really a thing.
What about an ice cream?
That's all right. Ice creams are fine.
What's wrong with crisps then?
Exactly. I say exactly the same fucking thing. If an ice cream's fine, why not fucking kebab? Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise. There you go.
Own podcast.
Yeah.
Have you heard it?
It hasn't come out yet.
Do you reckon he's inspired by us?
Actually, after I turned the recording off, he did ask me a few questions about podcasting and stuff. So.
Don't ask us.
Yeah. Exactly. Fuck nothing.
But we probably do inspire because people think, well, if those idiots can do podcasts,
That's
so
true.
could we.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
That's
can't
true.
be that hard. Those fuckers can do it.
Sounds good though, doesn't it? Birth, school, rock, death. Different songs,
Yeah, it does
picking
sound
different
good.
tracks. Sounds great.
Stu Whiffen does on his podcast. He gets people to choose songs for certain
Yeah.
parts of their life.
Points in their life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a similar sort of thing. But yeah, no, it sounds good. And like just listening to that interview with him, he just sounds like he'd be a good voice for a podcast, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
I like because it was weird, right? Because when you were talking to him about podcasts and stuff, I was typing some notes and I put, oh, this has been an interesting point. Maybe I could talk about how maybe podcasts are the new fanzines. And then you literally said it as I was typing it. I'm not joking.
I was thinking that as well. I was thinking the
Yeah.
other day that, podcasts are the new fanzines.
I genuinely sat there typing.
I don't believe you,
that.
Neil.
It's only because I was setting it
what I
up so I was setting up the question. That's why I was building it up.
It's true. That's
it's a good point, though, isn't it? And he agreed with me. Yes.
I think
I thought it was a very good point, actually. When I was
Thank
listening to
you.
it, I thought, fucking hell, he's right.
you can basically make your own podcast on anything you want and find people that are interested in the same thing, which is what a fanzine is, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like fanzines, but I know how much effort it is to put a podcast together. I get fanzines where even you had to stick stuff on bits of paper. It would have been a real. And actually going out and giving them out. And
So taking a bag of them to a gig and selling them. Yeah.
But another brilliant question you asked him was the day in the life at the NME. And the reply is just brilliant. Isn't it?
It was
Who
great.
would not want to
Everything I
do
hoped
that?
for, man. His answer was everything I hoped it was going to be.
That's
Yeah.
not
Brilliant.
sustainable day by day, though. Surely not.
He did it for 11 years. But that's exactly how I imagined it was, going to be, and it totally was.
But even that, when your job does probably involve drinking alcohol, like Neil says, long term, it's not going to be good for your health.
No. Can't imagine it would be.
Going in
No.
at 10, doing a bit of stuff, going to the pub, coming back, having a couple of meetings, going back to the pub.
Imagine how much beer he consumed over those years.
Yeah.
I
How many
know.
pints, if that's his
A lot.
drink.
He also made the point that they got more of the work that they needed to do done in the pubs because it was more conducive
Yeah.
to talking to bands.
Yeah, and
know.
so the press officers would come up to the pub because they knew they'd be there, and
Yeah, and also if you're in a band wanting to talk music with a record label, it's going to like an office somewhere. It's not. It's
so
if just sitting in a pub. It's easy, isn't it? It's best better for everyone. And there's
Yeah.
beer
And
and
crisps.
fags back then.
yeah,
Beer, fags, and crisps.
yeah,
Happy days.
happy
That was
days,
work.
man. That was his job.
Yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it? Like how he said that NME sort of their kind of recruitment process was they just found people who wrote good fanzines and stuff, which makes sense, doesn't it? Really, because
It does make sense,
Already,
'cause
they've already proved what they can do, what they need them to do, exactly what they need
Yeah.
them to do, basically.
And you must really fucking love music to go to all the trouble of doing that, right?
Also, when you were talking about the NME, I like how you tried to squeeze in as many journalists as you could just to show how much you fucking knew about NME journalists.
Thank
I
you.
think you got
Thank
them
you.
all
I'm
in
glad
there.
you enjoyed that. I think I went a bit overboard on this interview, to be honest. I think I embarrassed myself slightly, but I don't
No,
care
you didn't.
because it was a joy.
But it's a bit
Yeah.
funny actually, because a lot of the previous episodes we've sort of been against the enemy journalists.
Mm.
I don't know, demonising them a bit for
Yeah, a little bit.
being too
Yeah, that's
powerful
fair.
and whatnot.
That's
But now
Mm,
we're on the
mm,
other side. Doesn't look so bad, does it?
Well, he was one of the good ones, right?
We just changed our opinions
Hmm.
immediately, depending on who we've got on.
It's part
But I
of it,
think he
isn't it?
was, but he was one of the good ones, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he
Him
didn't
and
have a
Stephen
bad
Mac.
word to say about anyone,
No.
despite how much you were trying to get him to dish
I
some
think-
dirt on someone. He
I think
Well,
went
how'd
with
it
it.
go?
Anyone who knows about the indie scene in the night, well, even up to now, knows that he's an integral part of it. So that there's no real way that you can sort of.
Yeah, yeah. And everyone I've kind of read stuff when I was kind of, you know, doing research and stuff, anyone talking about him just basically just talked about what a nice guy he was, basically.
Yeah. And he mentioned Mark Hollis from Talk Talk. So,
Did.
you know,
Yeah.
man after my own heart. We're basically the same. Me and Simon. really.
Yeah.
You always
I
say
mean,
that.
he did a fanzine, you made a podcast, so that's the
And
same.
you know, we're both doing podcasts.
Did you work
Yeah.
for the world's biggest selling music weekly for 11 years at the peak of its powers?
I did edit The Crow, didn't I?
You did it. Okay. Did you
Yeah.
start a groundbreaking indie record label that gave the first exposure to a lot of bands?
We released a few singles, Main Street, on our own record label, Sneaky Midnight Records. So yeah, so we've both done that. Both done record labels. We've both done. I did little fanzines for Main Street when we used to go to gig. I put little fanzines.
That's
I think-
illegal
Richmond.
to do your own fanzine.
Is it illegal? I think
So,
you probably like Chris
what's
as much
different?
as he does.
yeah, or more.
Yeah. Or more. I don't know. He's written a whole book about it.
So what's
So-
different? What's
No,
the
you're
difference?
right. You're right. You're the same.
Thanks.
I thought it was interesting. He was saying that because they were getting like the bands at their early stages of their career, they got like the good times. They were like the bands
Yeah.
were at their most optimistic
Yeah.
and fun, and that was
Yeah.
interesting to hear. Right before they got all
Yeah.
But I
cynical
was going
and
to ask
shit.
about that. Why did they lose them then? You know, they must have missed out on all the main money, like Coldplay, for
Well,
example.
So he explains in the book they didn't try to keep them. That wasn't the whole
No,
point.
no.
It was just to put
No.
out a song. But with Coldplay, they did try to sign Coldplay, actually sign them to be like, you know, our band on the label. And apparently it went like right down to the wire. It went between whoever major record label they signed to eventually and
Yeah.
Fierce Panda. And apparently it went right down to it. And at the end, they just finally decided to jump and go for the major. And apparently, like, you know, Chris Martin, you know, phoned him up and they met in the pub and he said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but, you know, we're going to go with the other guys."
Yeah.
And he was really apologetic and really nice about it and all of that. But yeah, they almost did. They almost signed with Fierce Panda, like for proper.
It's interesting, the whole
Yeah.
Coldplay thing, isn't it? Because, you know, they're not the coolest band in the world now, are they? You know, everyone's sort of. But he
No.
was quite complimentary, wasn't he? I thought.
Yeah. Well, he did describe him as, you know, curly hair and tank top and
Yeah, but he
cracking
did
bad
sort of
jokes.
talk about their work ethics in the early days and how
Yeah.
humble they were and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
You know,
it was good to hear, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you know, when they first released music, they weren't like the Coldplay now. Like I say, even I can't get on board with the newest version of Coldplay. And
He
I'm
did say that.
very
He did
sure-
say the albums are rubbish, but their live is worth seeing, though, didn't he?
Yeah, but the early albums,
Yeah.
he spoke about X and Y, which
Yeah.
is one that I always
Yeah.
speak about. You know,
Yeah,
I think there is some good stuff on those.
it was good. I think he kind of softened me towards him a little bit. Yeah, he gave a good account.
I'm all right with Coldplay. I am.
So am I. Their music is just ridiculously
The last
shite.
album is so shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's embarrassing.
But
the older stuff. It's interesting what he said about their greatest hits thing. That makes sense. 'Cause
Yeah,
otherwise they would have had one.
I hadn't heard about that at all. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and that
interesting.
whole strategy to stay relevant and fresh and
Yeah.
Yeah,
and cycle their fans and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they do collabs with like all the whoever's fashionable at the
BTS
time,
and-
don't they? Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, they could clean up on the greatest hits easy, couldn't they?
Yeah. It's really interesting that the reason that they're not doing it. Yeah.
What would you call a Coldplay greatest hits?
I would call it greatest shit.
That's what I had in my head, but I knew you was going to say that.
Yeah.
I'd call it greatest tits.
Why? Doesn't make sense.
Just going back to last week's nonsense.
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to edit all of that out. It was slightly misogynistic fucking knockers nonsense.
I used that as a
I know
trailer
you
for the
did.
thing.
I know. I was hoping you were going to edit out, and you used it for the first part to emphasise it even more.
I've got no recollection of that.
We do apologise though if anyone did take offence. We talk about knobs all the time too.
That's true. We do.
You know,
Yeah.
do balance it out. Talking about Fizz Pandas, because Dave was saying how did they make a lot of money and stuff. Their business model in general was quite a good one, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When they were doing the
licensing the tracks. Yeah.
But that only worked back then. It doesn't work now, does it? Because singles are vinyl so expensive.
Exactly. But he said, like, when they were doing like the big compilation double 7 inches, they weren't that picky about the tracks they got. They had like live tracks and, you know, whatever versions and stuff, they didn't mind. But when they were putting out like a proper, just like standalone single, then they were saying give us your best tracks and stuff like that, which I thought was interesting.
Maybe it's a bit of a wang idea, but to talk about like that Loaded compilation and how
you're obsessed with that
works.
Loaded compilation.
Yeah, the business of it. How did they get the songs? Did they must have licensed them as well?
Yeah, I guess so.
That's the answer.
Know,
okay, that's the wang done.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
quick wang.
It's good when we talking about the Art Brut, Emily Kane missing out on the top 40 by 2 copies.
You know that I know the guy from Art Brut. We've had this conversation.
I know.
Haven't we?
Yeah.
Been round his house.
Eddie Argos.
I don't know him.
Oh,
he
really?
would have no idea who I am, but I've met him at his house.
Eddie Argos. He's a good man.
The original drummer for The Street was friends with him. We went round his flat in Bournemouth, and he was even then he was playing a Hoover or something.
Right.
But
yeah.
That was part of what he did, wasn't it? Played a Hoover.
He's a great kind of British eccentric, isn't he, Eddie Argos? He's great.
I said, apart from singing, do you do it? He goes, oh, yeah, I play Hoover in the band. But he did it with like a straight face.
Yeah. Last night, my wife hoovered my head.
I hate that for some reason.
Fat and Frantic.
But were they from Seaford, Fat and Frantic?
Don't know.
Yeah, they were, weren't they?
Come on,
really?
Yeah.
Well, that's massive if they were.
It's not.
That'd be the biggest band from Seaford.
No, Wendy James. Wendy James will always be the biggest.
Yeah.
And Jimi Hendrix's fiance bullshit. That doesn't even true.
I think Fat and Frantic were from Seaford. I don't know why I think that.
What about Jimi Hendrix's fiance?
Well, she was just lived in Seaford.
Shit didn't even happen. She probably didn't fucking live in Seaford.
See, I think she
did. Myth, isn't
it?
Did. No, Danny Baker killed Bob Marley.
What?
I didn't know that Danny Baker killed Bob Marley. No. How did you come across this?
In a charity football match. And
right. Yeah, that's how he got. Yeah, that's how he injured his toe, didn't he? Yeah, which
that was Danny Baker.
The cancer. Yeah. Oh, was it? Danny Baker killed
really?
Bob Marley.
Yeah.
Oh man.
True story.
Bloody hell. Sure. Okay, I believe that.
Bruce Lee died from a paracetamol, didn't he?
No.
I thought he died from being too fit. That's what people used to say at school.
He took a paracetamol.
That makes sense.
His body wasn't used to it. His body wasn't used to paracetamol. He died.
That's not true, is it?
I guess someone has to die from paracetamol.
One
in
100 of them, maybe. Yeah, not from taking one paracetamol.
He did it. He was too fit.
Too fit. So stupid. Yeah. Why are there no aspirins in the jungle? Because of paracetamol.
Oh.
I thought it was interesting when he was talking about the ego of the major record labels who would rather spend £100,000 on one band rather than 20 on 5 bands at 20,000. £20,000 each. That was interesting, right? He's right.
But let's argue about that.
Go on, Em.
It
Dave
depends how
likes
sure you are. I mean, if you've got 4 bands and you think one of them is better than the other, why not go with your gut? Back that one. But if you've got 4 bands and they're all quite good, then it seems sensible to hedge your bets.
But how do you know what's gonna kick off or grab the public's imagination?
Probably if I like it, it's going to make money.
It's true, 'cause it's going to be so shit.
Just play it to me.
Just play it to Dave.
That's what they should do.
He nods along.
Don't listen to Luke.
Chuck him $100,000. Yeah,
if
if
Luke
I like
likes
it,
it,
yeah. Don't even hedge your bets, man. Just
put it out on a limited
pass it along.
release. Limited release, 20 copies.
Yeah, pass it along to
that's the
Simon.
go.
Yeah.
But also how bands were falling into that trap as well, thinking because he was building all these bands up, getting them headline gigs at all these venues in London, and they were just sort of being led to believe that wasn't enough.
Yeah, that was interesting, right?
It's
These
all right, we'll see you
recent
later.
bands. Yeah. What do they want? The moon on a stick?
It's an age-old human problem, isn't it? Twist or stick. Stick with what you got or gamble for more. And most people gamble for more, don't they? That's why they vote Tory.
Yeah,
That's why people vote for the right? Because they think, maybe one day I'll regret not having to pay more tax.
I like his take on the Manics, how like the Holy Bible was their sort of farewell to Richie, and then they went all pop, which is what happened.
Yeah, it was.
I guess it was only really Richie and Nicky that were the flamboyant, glamorous ones, and James Dean Bradfield to a degree, but I don't know. He always looked a bit odd, I thought.
Odd? It was, Well,
I don't know.
As our guest 2 weeks ago, Neil Collins argued. He said, he's a great frontman, which I think he was. Not you.
Yeah, I didn't say that, did I? I just thought he looked a bit odd in the glam, sort of. He looked as comfortable as Nicky and Richie did.
No, that's true. He never really went as far as them, but you're right. He didn't look as comfortable. Yeah.
So I think when Richie sort of left, it was only really Nicky Wire that carried that on, wasn't it? So
yeah, did it well though.
Yeah, quite a lot of interesting takes, didn't he, Simon?
Yeah,
interesting person to have on.
Yeah, well, he's just a great music journalist, isn't he? That's
and he's very he writes. He's just a funny, clever, witty kind of guy, basically.
This is what you should have done. Why didn't you become an enemy journalist?
Oh, mate, I would have loved to have done. I wanted to.
Why didn't you, you fucking idiot?
You fucking an idiot. Why
do you think there's still time? Do you reckon I can still do it?
No one reads it anymore.
No, that's true.
You would
but
have been,
I'm not as clever and funny as Simon, though. So
you'd probably have been a little bit too young in the 90s as well. 2000s, you could have done it, though.
Man, young is fine. That's like the Julie Burchill. She was like 16, wasn't she, when she answered the Enemy advert for hip young gunslingers when punk was exploding. Yeah, man.
Well, then you missed the trick. You could have been down the pub with Simon Williams.
Oh, fucking hell. Imagine that. Yeah. Oh, man.
Well, you didn't have to imagine it. You could have done it. Sorry.
Anyway, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just, I didn't know, before I heard the interview, I had no idea that he had tried to commit suicide. And
yeah, I didn't until I read the book. Yeah.
But this is stupid. I know it's stupid, but it just sounded so surprising that person who I'd been listening to for 45 minutes.
Well, it was over an hour. It was like an hour and 10 minutes by that point. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up, Dave, because that is the reality of depression. Like, I've been through depression, as people may or may not know. It's not all, the brightest person in the room is quite often the one struggling the most. It's a weird one. It's almost incomprehensible, isn't it, that he could be someone going down that path, but it happens. Depression's an illness. It's not like you just feel a bit shit one day and get a bit down about stuff. It's a desire to not be here anymore. You know,
Yeah.
it's
But in that, there is an upside, right? That means that medication can help.
yeah, I still take medication.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need to anymore, but I do still take. Yeah, it doesn't work for everyone, but it can. Yeah, there generally is a way out of it, but you have to get help.
But it was just really good. That he was so open about it.
I think most people are in that position because it's not really something to be embarrassed about. It's just
and it shouldn't
something.
be. It shouldn't be, right?
No.
Yeah, he's very kind of matter of fact about the whole thing. In the book,
I think it makes other people uncomfortable sometimes, but it's not uncomfortable for the person to talk about it. A bit like grief. It's a similar thing. It's like I'm cool with talking about it, but for some people, that's a conversation they not particularly want to have when they've just been talking about music or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's why you can't be too judgmental with people because you never know what's going on in their lives.
The Tears of a Clown thing, right? The Robin Williams and there's a million examples.
Prime
right?
example. Well, a lot of comedians, aren't there? There are a lot of comedians that have sort of been down that path, depression and stuff. I think Jimmy Carr, he talks about it a lot, and he lost his mum when he was quite young.
I'm glad I asked him about it, though. I was kind of in two minds whether I should ask about it or not.
Yeah,
I'm glad I did because he was really open about it. So
there's some video footage of Chester Bennington on the day that he killed himself, just laughing with his kids, playing a game with his kids and stuff. You know, that's the reality of it. Anyway,
on that note,
it's life, isn't it? That is life, and that there's people listening to this that I'm sure are going through similar things. So just get help if you need to.
Yeah.
Can we talk about knobs again
said.
now?
Yeah,
go on.
Let's go back to knobs and boobs.
Go back to knobs. I like the fact that he's called his Chris book Up the Packet.
That's good.
Libertines album Up the Bracket.
Yeah.
Right, so Up the Packet.
You talk to us like we're a couple of idiots.
Dave, did you know the Libertines album was called Up the Bracket?
No.
There you go. Thank you. Oh, I got a question.
Sorry, Neil.
So he says he's not. Who's the indiest person ever? He claims it's not him. I don't think I'm very indie at all. I'm not.
Indiest person ever.
It's Luke. It is Luke.
It could be Luke, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the person who wouldn't admit it, would they? That's number one.
No, yeah, that's one. So
but I'm not.
Tick the boxes on that.
Well,
see,
after reading the book on K Records, I reckon Calvin Johnson's got a good claim to be the indiest person ever.
But I don't know who he is, so that's a good start.
Not with that name.
Calvin Johnson. That's a real indie name.
Calvin, no, not really.
Come on. He wears cardigans.
There's probably someone doing an obscure podcast somewhere, but, working really hard, doing a really good job.
And sitting in a small apartment in Tokyo surrounded by limited edition 7-inch singles behind them. With Fierce Panda, when I knew I was going to interview him, I was like, oh, I've got a few Fierce Panda singles. And I just pulled out my 7-inch collection, and it just kept coming out. I had no idea, and I was like, "Oh, that's another one. Oh, is that Fierce Panda? Oh, fuck, it's another one." And it was like more than 20.
Panda section.
No. Well, the ones that are like the compilations I put all together, but the other ones, I didn't. I just
that's pretty
had
impressive.
no idea. But
was he impressed?
I don't know. I think it was probably
Did you have
embarrassed.
them all like that?
No, I didn't. I had them stacked up beside me. I just had the albums behind.
It might have been a bit
I had a few.
if you'd done that.
I had a few, but not all. I held up the Idlewild. Oh, we didn't talk about that. What do you reckon about that as a description of music? A flight of stairs, falling down a flight of stairs. That's got to be one of the best fucking descriptions ever concocted, right?
I don't understand it. It's too indie for me.
He said it sounds like a flight of stairs falling down a flight of stairs.
Yeah, I know, and I still don't understand. I don't know what mood.
Imagine a flight of, imagine the noise it would make. It was a flight of stairs tumbled down a flight of stairs.
It'd make no noise. Flights of stairs.
It would clatter like Billy-O. Wouldn't it?
Yeah, they were touted as like the new Nirvana in the early days, weren't they? Idlewild.
Yeah.
That Captain song does sound very Nirvana. But
known for their live shows.
They're
Yeah,
great.
but that's a great song, man. Chandelier, it's great. Where's it's named after? Is that in New York? Idlewild Airport. That's where it's named after. Don't know where it is.
Oh, it's the original name of what is now known as JFK Airport.
Oh, really?
Which is where?
New York.
New York. Okay, there you go.
I just think it's quite a nice position to be in. Obviously not monetarily, maybe, but that he's never really been focused on like mainstream success for the bands and stuff. If you're not that bothered about that side of it, then the rest of it is just a joy, isn't it? You don't have to worry about the actual the success.
And he's still excited about new music. That comes across, right? It's just, it's great.
Yeah. If your business model isn't focused on the band being as successful as they possibly can, then it doesn't matter, does it?
No.
That bit's gone. Obviously, it's still difficult. You still got to try and break even at least or make a living out of it. But if you're not focused on being the biggest band in the world, then that takes a lot of pressure off.
Just to add, it was the funniest sounds made when asked our question about what band he would have been in.
He did make some funny noises, didn't he?
Oh, he did make some. Yeah, I was listening to it at double speed, so I'm not sure. I'll have to listen back. But I did notice there were some noises going on.
It's a hard one to answer, so understandable.
Green Day's a good answer, though, isn't it? Green Day's a good answer. And he's right. Like when Dookie, they're a bit of a behemoth band now, aren't they? Like everyone. Yeah. But back then, when they released Dookie, they're just a little punk band from America.
Yeah, he said, they were sleeping on his floor and stuff. Yeah. And he paid £100 to license a Green Day song.
I remember when they come out. We loved them. I'm sure we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
I bought Dookie.
Yeah, definitely
bought Dookie.
Oh, right. Man, I'm so hungry.
All right. Dave's hungry. So that's it for this one. Thanks so much, Simon, for coming on. Really enjoyed that. Yeah. Could listen to you all day. And you can
one of my personal favourites.
By going to listen to his new podcast. Not sure what it's called. Don't know if he said what it was called. But
can I just add, the book is on Spotify as well.
Oh, is it? As an audio book? I think he's reading it.
Yeah. So I'm going to
that's how I'll listen to it then. No, I can listen to it then because I don't read, do I? But I can certainly
highly recommended.
When I'm in Lanzarote next, I'm going to Bordeaux, aren't I? I might listen out on the plane.
It's great.
Yeah. You could put the entire book on the playlist.
I'll try.
If you are watching, please do give it a thumbs up. Get involved in the comments and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening, rate and review and share. I don't know if I'm going to keep saying that every week because it's pointless, isn't it?
That's what you have to. That's what podcasts do, man.
Do they?
Just shorten it. Yeah. Just say the initial letters of each word.
Just make it into one word.
Yeah.
All right. Definitely share with your friends because that's the best way that people will find the podcast. And then we can get more of your favourite guests on. If you want to sponsor this podcast, Stupid and Contagious podcast at gmail.com.
If you're new to the podcast, welcome aboard. There is a whole archive of your favourite 90s bands, of the ones that I mentioned on Fierce Panda that we've had on.
Smash.
We've had Smash. We've had These Animal Men, Biss and Bennett and Symposium and Embrace. And
just say the ones we haven't.
Three Colours Red. We've had on. So if you're into any of those, find them in the archives. I also make a mixtape for every episode. So there wasn't Jim Bob. So of course, Jim Bob, Jim Super Stereo World. It's been on. There wasn't actually that much direct Fierce Panda stuff on there, so I've ended up putting a load of the bands that we mentioned and then putting tracks. Maybe not necessarily Fierce, but I've tried to match. But if not, other tracks.
There's no way of knowing if anyone listens to your mixtapes anyway. Dave does.
That's true. That's true. But I just feel bad I wasn't able to directly match some of them.
I've said this before, but if people aren't, like, they're probably just thinking, oh yeah, whatever. But it generally are really well put together. So I would advise you have a listen to the mixtapes.
Why don't we say they have to, or they can't listen to the podcast?
All right,
that. It's both or nothing.
Dave, don't give them that option because you know what'll happen. But no, definitely. That's the other part of the podcast because we don't put music on the podcast because of copyright, blah blah blah. So listen to the mixtapes in conjunction with with the podcast and be a perfect
Afternoon. A
afternoon.
perfect afternoon.
So yeah, join us next week for episode 90. It's a big one.
One. No, this is episode 90.
This is
Is it?
90.
Yeah, you said
I
it at the
thought this was
beginning. You
89.
fuck nut. We talked about it for fucking ages. You kept going on about it as if it meant something, and it's really fucking annoying.
And it's on the screen.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's in the title.
All right. Well, join us next week for episode 91 then. The Stupid and Contagious podcast. Dave?
See you in a minute.